Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. When all the participants in the game are basically superhuman, the game changes drastically. Elmgia moved closer to me and continued to watch by my side. I did not get the chance to thank you for capturing Laplace Felix. It's fine, it wasn't all that difficult. Elmgia shook her head. No, Sarian is in your debt. Should you need an ally in your darkest times, we will be there. Alright, thanks, I guess. Having the favor of a super kingdom of elves won't ever hurt anybody. I noticed Elmgia watching Kenya with quite a bit of interest. I didn't think children were in your strike zone. I teased. Elmgia scoffed. As if. I am simply curious about that boy. He seems to be blessed by an elemental of light. He has the potential to become a true hero. I wasn't that surprised that Elmgia could seemingly sense blessings. She was a high elf, after all. Indeed, once Ramaris blesses him, he should acquire a hero's egg. Perhaps Rimuru will allow me to teach Kenya then? I have always wished to teach someone, and a hero is as good a place to start as any. I shrugged my shoulders. You'll have to talk to Rimuru about that. But he probably wouldn't mind. Elmgia nodded. I shall do that then. I had heard that there was another child part of this group at one point, Chloe Aubert. Ah yeah, her. Some stuff happened, so she is no longer here at the moment. Elmgia's eyes narrowed slightly, yet she nodded nonetheless. Very well, I shall not pry. I nodded. Thanks for that. I'm thankful that this isn't like a standard isekai where every royal is absolutely unreasonable and expects the world to work in their favor. I guess being practically immortal is bound to help increase one's wisdom no matter what, and Elmgia is old. Did you just think something rude? Asked Elmgia with a glare. How? Odin? Apostrophe. Hello Odin? Apostrophe. Betrayed by my closest companion when I needed her most. Well, Felix? No, nothing like that. You must be imagining things. It seems to. Elmgia said while still looking at me suspiciously. Could a woman's intuition be an intrinsic skill? It has to be. That would explain everything. Though I didn't seem to get any special benefits that one time I turned into a girl. Wait, would Guy have women's intuition? Wasn't he? Maybe I am getting off track. I expect those pigeons will be attacking Tempest during the next Tenma War, said Elmgia, shaking me out of my thoughts. Pigeons? Ah, you mean the angels? Elmgia nodded. Indeed. Hey, pigeons is a fun way to call them. They seem to have attacked any nation that has developed past a certain point, right? Elmgia nodded. That is right. Sarian has had to deal with their attacks for some time now. Thankfully, they are not particularly strong. They are just vast in numbers. How many angels were there in the last Tenma War? Elmgia tilted her head. Around 1 million. Whoa, that's a lot. Elmgia nodded. Indeed. Well, I'm sure we'll be fine. If they aren't that strong, they shouldn't be hard to handle. My only worry about these angels is if they are connected to the primordial angels. Those guys, from what I know, could pose a problem. As far as I know, none of the primordial angels have joined in on the Tenma War, but it is far too large of a coincidence for it to be angels that attack every 500 years. The primordial angels must be involved somehow. I just don't know how yet. I'll need more information to come to a conclusion. Elmgia and I continued to watch the kids play until, eventually, Elmgia had to leave as she would be heading back to Sarian soon. Goodbye, Felix. Do remember to feel free to stop by at Sarian any time. I nodded. I will. See ya. Hopefully, it will not take Elmgia too long to get in contact with her mother. Eventually, the kids stopped playing and approached me. Where did Big Sissel go? Asked Kenya. She had some prior arrangements. She might not look it, but she's an important person. The kids looked sad but nodded. To cheer them up, I said, why don't I teach you guys some new moves? Their eyes brightened with excitement as they heard me. Really? Asked Alice. Sure, I might not specialize in golem magic like you do, but I'm sure I can help you improve your craft," I told Alice. They all nodded eagerly. Alice specialized in golem magic. She could control a good amount of golems at once, or in her case, stuffed toys. However, if given stronger plushies, she might be able to terrorize her enemies with stuffed unicorns and bears. Who knows, maybe she could recreate a certain bite of 87. Kenya seemed to want to be a magic swordsman, specifically one that used fire magic. Gale specialized in earth magic and had an elemental that complemented that. He was still figuring out his path, but he was surprisingly adept at tanking attacks. Ryota specializes in wind and water magic. He even had the extra skill, Frenzy, which allowed him to more than double their physical strength and speed at the cost of magicules. However, he was still inexperienced, so he tended to lose his sanity if he pushed his skill too much. I taught the kids for as long as I could before sending them back to the school dorms. Yuki and Maribel have almost left Tempest territory now, not much longer now. I could feel the smile growing on my face at the prospect of finally killing Yuki. He had a lot to pay for. I in no way was doing this out of the goodness of my heart. I was just pissed that he was one of the reasons for Siko's death, and even if Hinata's death was always going to happen, it was still his fault. No, I was doing this solely for revenge, and I couldn't care less. Chapter 122, The Ambush. Yuki sighed as he relaxed into the comfortable seat in the carriage Maribel had supplied him with. As annoying as Tempest and Rimuru could be, he had to thank them for renovating the design of the carriages. Adding suspension was a small yet quite impacting change to the average carriage. He thought back on the events that happened in the recent days. He knew Rimuru had suspected him of something that was likely the reason he took custody of the children. He wished to keep them safe in Tempest, something Yuki did not care much for. Sure, the kids had potential, each was bound to a greater elemental, but he'd rather Rimuru get off his back. He was not lying when he said he was not 100% confident that he could defeat Rimuru head-on. He had grown far more powerful after his ascension into a demon lord. The festival itself was rather enjoyable. The food was amazing. He enjoyed the tournament as well. It allowed him to get a general understanding of the strength of some of Rimuru's subordinates. The concert was also enjoyable. He did not think he would ever get to listen to those nostalgic anime openings again, but Rimuru proved him wrong once again. It was also fairly amusing to watch Hinata navigate conversations with Demon Lord Felix. Yuki thought she may have even had a crush on him, something he originally did not think was possible, at least not the Hinata from before. Hinata had changed. She was far more understanding and casual. Yuki could not pinpoint exactly what happened or how exactly she changed, but he felt it had something to do with Demon Lord Felix. And then there was the attack on Tempest. He was surprised that the Divine Empress Selmgia had offered to help Rimuru defend Tempest. It seems he underestimated how close their relationship was, not to mention the Dwarven King Gazel also assisted along with Hinata's Holy Knight captains. With all of those powerful individuals assisting, the attack was not as effective as it could have been. In fact, Rimuru had delivered a speech that seemed to gather more people in support of Tempest. He spoke about how the terrorist attack was a clear sign that they were doing something right, that there was someone out there fearful about the cooperation of humanity and monsters. Yuki thought that Rimuru had far too much charisma. Even those nobles that always sat on their asses were in support of Rimuru, though that was likely due to all the luxuries Tempest offered. The slime could deliver one hell of a speech, even he was almost convinced by Rimuru. At least Laplace's ambush on Hinata seemed to have been successful. He had neither seen nor heard anyone mention Hinata's whereabouts since the night of the attack on Tempest. He had asked Rimuru about Hinata as he was leaving, but Rimuru diverted the topic away from Hinata, which was enough to confirm his suspicions that Hinata was finally dead. He was glad that finally, one potential enemy was taken care of. The attack wasn't a complete failure. He was surprised at how easily Rimuru's forces were able to deal with the hordes of otherworlders that had attacked, not to mention he heard that Demon Lord Felix's subordinates were no slouches either. He did lose the Chaos Dragon, though, and he had no idea what had happened to it. He wanted to gain control of it after dealing with Maribel, but no plan survives contact with the enemy. He could only assume that either Demon Lord Felix or Demon Lord Milim took care of it, seeing as Rimuru was busy dealing with the nobles that night. If Demon Lord Felix had been responsible, then his threat level would have increased by multiple margins. Even now, he still shivered when remembering the sheer draconic aura the Chaos Dragon unleashed. It was not called the Ancestor of Dragons for nothing. Though Yuki was fairly confident that the destroyer was responsible for dealing with the Chaos Dragons, Milim Nava had been spotted flying towards the draconic aura at the beginning of the attack. Still, he could plan for all of these new threats once he is back on one of his bases with Kagli by his side. Her unique skill was useful for such things. He would feel much more confident once all their forces were together rather than how they were currently split up. There was Kagli, Tyr, Laplace, And then the three heads of Cerberus, Misha, Damrata and Vega. Damrata was always a good ally and a good friend to have. He had sworn loyalty to him, and he had given no reason to doubt him so far. He did give him that artifact that was capable of teleporting through almost any kind of barrier and space lock, the artifact he gave to Laplace to teleport Hinata out of Tempest so that Laplace could deal with her uninterrupted should his initial assassination attempt fail. Yuki had no idea where Damrata got such a seemingly powerful artifact from, but Yuki just chalked it up to some of Damrata's connections from the Eastern Empire. Misha was also a useful subordinate. She was a cunning woman who took advantage of her looks to accomplish what he ordered her. Misha was born in the capital of the Eastern Empire and raised on the streets. Now she specializes in the Echidna division of Cerberus. She was responsible for taming monsters. Vega was perhaps one of Yuki's most successful experiments. He had inherited the blood of one of the experiments of the Rosso, the Magic Inquisitors. He is both a monster and a human at once, a true oddity. Yuki had modified Vega to mimic the properties of a slime, an imitation slime of sorts. It was thanks to that modification that Vega had such an absurd regeneration. They had conducted multiple experiments on him. Vega would revive even should his head be missing. Even the body parts that were already cut off would regenerate, creating a physical body with no soul. They were practically monsters with no sense of self. They were hollow bodies that could be used to successfully incarnate demons theoretically. Indeed, Vega was a truly interesting being with untapped potential. His mind then wandered back to Mariabelle, the greedy. Or should he call her the fool? He was quite surprised when she told him that he would be accompanying her back to the Western nations. Seeing as she believed he was still under her control, he decided to comply. It's not like any of the guards Mariabelle brought with him could actually threaten him, and he was not ready to reveal his hand yet and get rid of her. He was hoping to meet up with Laplace, but it seems he will have to wait. Cagley should already be at their new hidden base, which was where he was going to be headed after Rimuru dropped him off back at the Free Guild, but instead, he was tagging along with Mariabelle. Still, he was quite curious as to what Mariabelle wished to discuss. It must be something important, seeing as she seemed to be in a bit of a hurry. Through one of his spies, he had learned that Mariabelle had sent word back to invite Tempest to the Council of the West. He assumed that since this scheme of hers wasn't as successful as she hoped, she had come up with a new one. A scheme that involved Tempest joining the Council of the West. It wouldn't surprise him if that was what she wished to discuss with him. In fact, he was fairly confident that was the reason for her ordering him to accompany her back to the Western nations once he deduced that he was able to relax in the carriage far easier. It seemed Mariabelle's plan to take control of Demon Lord Felix had failed. It seems she was not found, though, or else he imagined Demon Lord Felix would not have allowed Mariabelle to escape in the first place. No, she must have noticed the attack was not going as planned and decided to abort the plan, a decision Yuki thought was wise. Though he did have a bad feeling for some reason, he decided to just ignore it and assumed he was just feeling under the weather. He was a genius, after all. He had accounted for everything possible. Perhaps he will take a nap. I spread my demonic wings and descended to the sky. My wings were unnecessary to fly, but they did add more maneuverability, and they also added a whole lot to the presence. My demonic wings are fairly similar to Diablo's in appearance, according to Diablo. I flew over the branch of the Western Holy Church located in Tempest as I prepared to ambush Yuki. Luminous had sent Louis to calm Hinata's subordinates down, but they were quite antsy due to her disappearance. However, the appearance of the Pope of Luminism seemed to have calmed them down. I sensed that Mariabelle and Yuki were now far enough away. No one else was on that road at the moment but them. Of course, Mariabelle still had her escorts. Yuki had come to Tempest with Rimuru's help through teleportation. The current carriage Yuki was in was one Mariabelle had loaned him. I sent out a thought communication, letting everyone know I was going to be out. I didn't know how long this was going to take. I might decide to toy with my prey a bit after all and test the limits of Yuki's anti-skill. I'll be out for a little while taking care of a bug. Yes, a bug. I see. If someone has displeased you, my lord, it would be my honor to take care of them for you, said Arcuade. I would be much more suitable for such a task, my lord, protested Megaman. Feel free to make use of my body, master. It does not matter if it is to sate your lusts on me or to use me as your tool, said Lalitina. Stop it, you three. If Felix-sama wished for us to do something for him, of course, he would tell us. I'm sure there is a reason he is going himself, right, Felix-sama? That's right, Siko, I didn't expect that from you. Humphrey. As Felix-sama's first secretary, I must always know what you wish for, said Siko. I don't think that's how it works, but okay then. But you guys all heard what Siko said. I need to take care of this personally. I apologize for overstepping my bounds, my lord. Apologized Arcuade, Megaman, and Lalitina soon followed. It's fine. I know you were just trying your best. Anyways, I'm off. Everyone wished me luck. I suppressed my presence completely and snapped my fingers, appearing above two very fancy carriages being pulled by horses. There were guards stationed on all sides of the two carriages. I'll have to bring everyone with us so as to not cause suspicion. If these guards blab too much and say that Ecchi and Maribel were teleported right outside Tempest, that could paint a pretty bad picture. I'll just dominate them with spiritual domination. I can use them to point fingers further towards a monster attack being the cause of death. According to Maribel, there would be various monsters and magic beasts at the location she told me of. I can just use them to frame the attack. Odin, dominate them. Affirmative. It didn't take even a moment for me to gain complete control over the guards. I'll try my best to make sure they don't die. They are just doing their jobs, after all. Actually, I have a better idea. I quickly teleported behind each and every guard, as well as the two humans driving the carriage, and immediately stored them in my infinity space. That would be the best way to make sure they remain protected. Once that was done, I snapped my fingers and bent space itself to transport us to the coordinates Maribel had relayed to me. I could sense that Ecchi had come along, which I hadn't doubted. Come out, Maribel. I voiced out. The door of the lead carriage opened, and out came Maribel. Lord Felix. She greeted. I walked towards Maribel. Well done, Maribel, you got the job done. Everything was as you willed, Lord Felix. As Maribel and I were conversing, I heard the door to the second carriage open behind me. Demon Lord Felix, huh? I had hoped that my gut feeling was wrong, but of course, it wasn't. Said a lanky-looking Japanese man. I turned around to face him. Ecchi Kagorazaka, just the man I wanted to meet. Ecchi nervously rubbed the back of his head. His act was almost perfect, acting as if he was genuinely confused. If you wanted to meet me that bad, you could have just scheduled an appointment with my secretary. Ecchi joked. Your secretary? That's Kagli, or rather Kaslim, right? Ecchi's eyes widened slightly, hearing me before he sighed. His awkward body language instantly vanished, leaving him standing in what appeared to be a confident stance. So you got Laplace then, huh? I raised my brow. Or I could have found out from another source. Ecchi shook his head. That is not possible. I made sure that no information about Kagli's true identity would be revealed. No, you must have somehow learned that information from Laplace. That's quite arrogant of you to believe that you have everything covered. The only reason that I'm acting as relaxed as I am is due to Odin helping me create it. Arrogant? Perhaps, but I am not wrong, am I? You must know quite a bit then. Responded Ecchi. He was probably secretly trying to pry for more information. Nope. Laplace is as good as gone. I said cheerfully. An expression of rage appeared on Ecchi's face before he quickly regained himself. I've taken out 3 of your friends now, huh? Footman, Clayman, and now Laplace. I said with a smirk. Ecchi's eye twitched, but his control over his own body was good enough that he didn't let the rage show. Just a pure poker face. I had to hand it to him, Ecchi could bullshit like no one else. I assume you managed to get Laplace to spill everything somehow. I didn't bother answering. Seeing that, Ecchi sighed and asked his next question. At this point, I was just humoring him, curious to see what he was up to. I had already placed multiple barriers, one that was meant to block off all communication from the inside. I smirked when I sensed Ecchi sending out a signal through some artifact. It seems he was attempting to call someone for assistance. Little did he know his little message wouldn't be reaching anybody. The artifact was powerful and is capable of penetrating through practically all signal-blocking barriers. Unfortunately, this was a barrier Odin designed. One would need to be at least at the ultimate level to bypass it. Ecchi was strong due to his anti-skill, but he was not at the ultimate level. Ecchi's gaze then shifted to Maribel, trying to win some time for reinforcements by making conversation. I am surprised that you managed to get her on your side. I have never seen her acting so submissive to anyone else before. I shrugged my shoulders. What can I say? It seems she can understand my greatness, isn't that right, Maribel? Maribel nodded with a deadpan expression, her eyes hollow as she answered. Of course, Lord Felix. Ecchi looked at Maribel oddly. How fascinating. Have you managed to control her? How amusing for one such as her to fall to her own games. Oh? So you do know about her ability as expected then? Ecchi nodded while looking down at Maribel. She truly was far too arrogant. Her greed was far less than mine. How foolish of her to attempt to dominate one such as me. Her greed was less than Ecchi's? What does that mean? Notice. It is theoretically possible to resist and slightly reverse the effects of greed back onto the user should the person greed is being used on have a greater level of greed than the original user of greed. Of course. It doesn't surprise me that a Sensory's skill would be treacherous to its own master, allowing itself to be used against its master. What kind of reversal effects are we talking about? Could he be capable of accessing all of Mariabelle's memories? In that case, this plan might already be compromised, and I'll have to act quickly. Negative. It only allows one to slightly guide the actions of the host of greed. I see, Ecchi must have nudged Mariabelle in certain directions then. I assume that you have placed a barrier up to prevent me from escaping? Casually asked Ecchi. I rolled my eyes. Why would I tell you? I'm not some comic book villain. I had indeed placed multiple barriers around the area. Of course, anti-skill should be capable of getting through them, but that didn't matter much as, from what I know, Ecchi is not capable of long-distance teleportation, and he would need to directly touch the barrier to negate it. With my speed it was practically impossible for him to arrive at the edge of the barrier I had placed before I interrupted him. I also do not sense any sort of artifacts that are capable of interfering with space, so he should not be capable of teleporting away from here. The artifact that was given to Laplace by Ecchi was a one-time spatial interference artifact that allowed Laplace to teleport Hinata and him a good distance away from Tempest. Laplace said he had no idea where Ecchi had gotten such an artifact from, but that Ecchi likely did not have such an artifact readily available, or he would have made use of it far more. From what I could understand, it was a powerful artifact, one that allowed one to ignore Tempest's barriers is bound to be. Odin thought that the person who created it likely had at least spatial domination. Even I did not have spatial domination until my harvest festival, so whoever Ecchi got it from was strong or had connections with someone strong. Still, as far as I know, Ecchi was just a cornered rat now. Comic book villain? I see. Are you an otherworlder too, then? Asked Ecchi. Seeing no harm, I nodded. Another worlder that became a demon then? How odd. I have not heard of such a thing before. Ecchi mused out loud. It was fairly amusing to me that Ecchi was still acting confident and prying me for information. He likely thought anti-skill was enough to take me on. Oh, how wrong he was. Now that you've asked your questions, I'll ask you some of mine. What was your reason for all this? Pushing Famuth to invade Tempest, having Hinata killed, assisting Mariabelle, what was the point? I knew Laplace said he wished for world domination, but perhaps he would give me a different answer. For peace, of course. Ecchi answered as if I was asking a simple question. Peace? Ecchi sighed. Look at the world around us, Felix. He pointed to Mariabelle. This little girl is capable of deciding the fate of millions. A girl who does not care for the common man, who is only out for her own selfish gain. Even then, there are so many tyrants out there that can do what they wish for, that can destroy families without any consequences. He did make a good point. Indeed, the current state of this world is not ideal, but it's the world we have. Ecchi nodded. Indeed, it is the world we have. But I am not going to stand by and watch as people are torn about by their so-called betters. So what? You're going to change the world by destroying even more families? You must be aware of all the lives the Famuth invasion claimed, even if they were revived due to a fortunate series of events. I'm not some goody-goody guy, but I can at least admit that to myself. I wasn't the gold standard for a perfectly moral person, but I like to believe that I wasn't hypocritical and lying to myself. Ecchi shrugged his shoulders. Sacrifices have to be made for the greater good. Oh God. He is the type to say he is doing bad things for the greater good. Maybe his title should be Ecchi, we live in a society, Kagorazaka. And who are you to decide who gets to be sacrificed? I asked, mostly out of curiosity. In this world whoever is strong is right. If Ecchi was the strongest then theoretically he could accomplish his plan. I was curious what his reasoning would be. By this point my hate for him had mellowed out. He would die, no matter what. What was the use in hating a dead man? In fact, the only reason I enjoyed bullying Ecchi was because he made it personal, otherwise I likely wouldn't have interfered with him until his plan started to cause me trouble. I normally wasn't one to bully others unnecessarily. I didn't get my rocks off by holding my power over the weak. I didn't need the fear and awe of others to feel good about myself, but fuck Ecchi in particular. I'm the only one who is pushing to change things. It is up to me to decide the best way to achieve my goals. Seriously? That's your excuse? I wouldn't be put off by Ecchi if he admitted he was doing what he was doing for his own selfish gain. I could understand being selfish. I was selfish. People had their own goals and desires. Some wanted power, some wanted freedom, and some wanted adventure and everything else in between. But framing it as him doing the noble thing, as him saving humanity? That was just bullshit. Your logic is horrible. I admitted. You may think so, but I know I'm doing what is right. I am doing what I must to create a world where my friends and I can laugh without worries. Ecchi responded, a small smile on his face. I scoffed. Your friends? Who do you even have left anyway? I've already killed 3 of your so-called friends. Yuki's fists clenched, the facade he was putting on cracking for a moment. Yes, suffer more, Yuki. They knew what they were getting into, but the blame does lie with me. Perhaps I could have tried to convince Rimuru to my way of thinking, but it is too late for that now. Yuki sighed. Indeed, it's too late. I think I will be toying with Yuki. I want to crush his hopes. That is the very least he deserves for causing Siko's and Hinata's death. I'm sure he's ruined other lives, and while I wasn't doing this for them, I'm sure those whose lives he has ruined would be grateful. Yuki's death will not be peaceful. Yuki Kagorazaka, Yuki knew he was having a bit of a problem. When he imagined demon lords, he imagined a being that radiated a fearsome aura, but the being in front of him was radiating absolutely nothing. Every single being radiates some aura passively. It was just not possible, to his knowledge, to completely suppress one's aura to 0. Sure, it was possible to minimize leakage and make yourself undetectable until someone manages to physically play eyes on you. But Yuki was looking the demon lord dead in the eye, and yet he was having trouble believing the demon lord was actually in front of him, and that scared him. Even analytical appraisal failed to detect him. In fact, it reminded him of something from a manga he had read. In Bleach Transcendent, existences are unable to be sensed by inferior existences, but such a thing is not possible. This was no manga world, no, Yuki just assumed that the demon lord had some skill that allowed him to completely suppress his presence. Rimuru also did not release any aura, but Yuki knew that was an effect of the anti-magic mask Shizu passed on to him. Even he managed to replicate the mask's effects to a limited extent. He observed the demon lord in front of him closely. His whitish silver hair and his piercing blue eyes that seemed as if they could see through the soul itself gazed down at Yuki arrogantly. As if he was below his notice, something that angered him. He suppressed the overwhelming rage he was feeling. Hearing about Laplace's death was not fun. But there was no other explanation as to why Demon Lord Felix managed to find out so much about him. Cagley would not be happy. Laplace was one of them. He was the rock everyone could lean on in their troubles. Still, he could worry about that later. He had to worry about successfully making it out of this situation first, as survival was his current priority. He was planning to stall, that was the reason he was asking the Demon Lord in front of him so many questions. He had sent out a signal with his location asking for help, a signal that was designed to penetrate through all barriers. Cagley should already be on her way. He just needed to stall. Once Cagley brought enough reinforcements, they should be able to, at the very least escape, if not stall. Vega, Tyr, Misha, and her tamed monsters would all be a formidable force to deal with at once. Cagley herself could only exert an amount of power equal to that of a greater Magins, but even that would be helpful. Yuki believed himself to be unbeatable. He was confident in his strength. Even to those demon lords at the top of the world, he felt he would be capable of challenging, and reinforcements were just his insurance. He had defeated Laplace, after all, and Laplace was no slouch. His status as a former hero could attest to that. Indeed, it's too late, said the demon lord. Yuki knew he had to do something to stall further. Now, why don't we team up instead? I'm willing to give half the world to you. A demon lord that owns half the world would be pretty sweet, right? Offered Yuki. Yuki tried to put on a friendly tone. That's how he negotiated. This was his style of negotiating. He would usually throw out a wild statement to get a reaction, in an attempt to gauge his enemy's true intentions, and it would usually work. Demon Lord Felix seemed to be here for something important. He would not have ambushed him with Maria Belle's assistance otherwise. Yuki assumes he was here to get some form of revenge, perhaps for Hinata's death? The demon lord did seem awfully attached to her. Yuki assumed it was his past as a human that allowed an evil demon to grow attached to someone. He was a demon now, and it was in a demon's nature to be evil, but he supposed that being a former human was able to temper Demon Lord Felix's more destructive impulses. Negotiating, huh? Unfortunately, I'm not interested in half the world. It sounds like a lot of work to manage all of that. Yuki supposed that the demon lord was right. If one wished to effectively rule half the world while guaranteeing prosperity, it would be an incredible amount of work. Still, it did give Yuki some insight into Felix's character that he would even bother considering the responsibilities a good ruler has. With that kind of thinking, he can reassure Cagley that her former citizens are likely not being treated terribly. That's fair enough. May I ask why exactly you have done this? Knowing his exact intentions would help. Yuki could tell the demon lord was not taking him seriously. If he was, he would have finished him off before Yuki could even call for reinforcements. The demon lord looked at him with amusement, still looking down on him. Oh? You don't know, huh? Well, there was you causing the death of Misako, then there was the fact you attacked my best friend's nation, then there is the fact that you killed Hinata. I see. All of a sudden, a storm started gathering around him. The wind was picking up, clouds were forming above them, and rain was beginning to fall. Ecchi did not think it was possible to manipulate the weather to this extent without any difficulty. He had no doubt that Felix was behind this sudden shift in weather. Ecchi did not think there was a way to peacefully resolve this conflict. If Demon Lord Felix knew about his activities, then it would be safe to assume that Rimuru did as well. Once he escaped, he would likely have to abandon his position as the guild master of the Free Guild and flee to the Eastern Empire. Cerberus already had a base of operations in the Eastern Empire, and he already had a plan ready. Ecchi planned to join the military and rise through the ranks. He had many resources in the East. He had helped funnel many other worlders there, after all, many who were in high-ranking military positions and were still loyal to him. He would use all those resources to stage a coup and become Emperor of the Eastern Empire, giving him a foothold in a large portion of the main continent. The Demon Lord looked to Mariabel. "Why don't you go wait in the carriage? Try not to die, don't expect me to save you. You no longer have any use for me, Mariabel." "How cruel." Mariabel nodded. It seems the Demon Lord had some sort of domination over Mariabel. Ecchi could not see how the normal Mariabel would casually ignore someone, proclaiming that if she died he would not care. The blatant disregard Demon Lord Felix has shown for Mariabel would be enough to set her off. A mind control ability then, perhaps something similar to Clayman's. But it seems negotiations broke down then. His gaze focused on Mariabel. He eventually planned to kill Mariabel. He even had an idea as to how to acquire her unique skill. It seems he would be testing that idea now. She was far enough away from the Demon Lord that Ecchi felt he could safely get to her before the Demon Lord could do anything. It seems our conflict is inevitable then. "Don't mind me. I wish to see how strong one of the Demon Lords is," said Ecchi with an arrogant smirk. He quickly dashed at his top speed, leaving an after-trail, and dirt kicked up behind him. He pierced Mariabel's chest with his fighting spirit-coated fist. He laughed as he finally dealt with Mariabel. He had a lot of grievances to work off for her. "Your greed was strong, Mariabel, but mine was stronger." Ecchi laughed smugly. He noticed Felix was curiously watching their interaction. He truly did not care for Mariabel's death then. Good, that gave him some time to enact his plan. He looked back down at Mariabel with pure disregard. "I did not even need to use my anti-skill to defeat you. How pathetic." Mariabel did not react to any of his comments. How annoying. He quickly dealt the final blow and began absorbing greed by showing that his greed was the greatest in the world. Mariabel's power began leaking out. Ecchi greedily absorbed it all. "Ooh. Is this your shonen power-up, Ecchi?" He heard the Demon Lord question in a mocking tone. Ecchi ignored him. If he was aware of the shonen trope, he should have dealt with him before he received his so-called shonen power-up. He clearly was not cultured enough. Pathetic. After a few moments, Mariabel's eyes finally closed. She was dead. Had she been born even a decade earlier, she probably would have been dominating the world, commented the Demon Lord. Ecchi found it difficult to disagree. Back then, he wouldn't have had the resources in the Western nations to counter her. Indeed. He then tore his hand out of Mariabel's chest, blood splashing against him. He ignored the blood and flexed his newly gained power. He had more desire than Mariabel. The Sin series' unique skills were among the most powerful in the world, as he had just learned. He had more desire, and so greed chose him. It seems you absorbed Mariabel's power. Do you have greed now? Well, either way, that is far from enough to defeat me. We'll see about that, responded Ecchi. Still, it is quite interesting that you were able to tear greed away from Mariabel. Perhaps your unique skill allows you to steal skills. How interesting. Ecchi did not bother responding to the Demon Lord and quickly got into his combat position. He was a master at martial arts. Even Shizu-sensei had to admit defeat against him when it came to pure martial prowess. The Demon Lord then cracked his neck. "Well, not like that is going to be enough to beat me, but let's see what you got." Ecchi was confident he could beat anyone in a one-on-one fight, so he made the first move. Lightning was beginning to strike all around him, but conveniently did not touch him. He quickly set the area around Felix on fire with but a look with his inborn ability, psychokinesis, hoping that on the off chance the Demon Lord may be wounded by the fire. The rain was not capable of subduing the fire he had created. Then, he launched a kick at Felix, one that Felix easily avoided. His plan was to make physical contact with Felix and then suppress the demon's skills, if possible, with anti-skill. Unfortunately, it seems his goal will not be as easy as he expected. Felix took a step backward and somehow appeared 20 feet away, seemingly unaffected by the flames. "What an odd ability of yours. You used it to set the area around me on fire, right? It didn't seem like a skill." "Oh well, not like it matters," said Felix. The Demon Lord snapped his fingers and created spheres made out of space itself all around him, and then sent them towards Ecchi. Ecchi sensed an incredible amount of power in each of the spheres, but thankfully anti-skill was easily able to nullify the spatial spheres. Your anti-skill negates almost all magic and skills, right? Before Ecchi could prepare himself, Felix clapped his hands together in front of him so hard that it released a shock wave. The shock wave disrupted the earth beneath him, sending fractured pieces of the earth to fly towards him at speeds no normal human could avoid. Ecchi, however, was no normal human. He poured his fighting spirit into his legs and jumped, easily avoiding the after effects of Felix's clap. Ecchi safely landed 10 feet away from his previous location. He exaggeratedly sighed. Man, what kind of physical strength do you have? Even if Ecchi had exaggerated his surprise, he was still shocked at how much physical power was contained in Felix's body. An incredible amount of force was needed to create a shock wave from a mere clap. Are you going to ask questions or fight? Come on, I'm getting bored here, said Felix, putting one of his hands in his pockets and yawning. You're really looking down on me, aren't you? Well, I'll show you why that's not a good idea. Ecchi grunted as he dashed towards Felix, breaking the sound barrier once again whilst simultaneously using his psychokinesis to attack Felix's mind. What he didn't expect was for Felix to appear right beside him and trip him before he had a chance to react, sending him flying into a grove of trees. He could feel some of his bones shatter from the impact, but he pushed the pain aside. He hadn't even seen him move. The wind hadn't even rustled, and no dirt was kicked up behind him. It was as if the Demon Lord had just appeared next to him, which, for all Ecchi knew, he might have. Ecchi felt humiliated but quickly recovered. He had long since given himself a healing factor with his unique skill, Creator, so he quickly healed from his injuries. Though I was not aware you were capable of performing mental attacks, they were even somewhat strong. I imagine you would have destroyed a normal human's mind easily, commented Felix. But, you know, if I wanted you dead, I would have sent one of my primordial subordinates. Perhaps you could have served as a good stepping stone for one of them, but I didn't. I wanted to deal with you myself. I wanted to see you attempt to fight for your life and fail. The demon mocked cruelly as red lightning began flashing around him. Ecchi had not seen this side of Felix before. Even when they had met for that meal with Hinata and Rimuru, back then Felix had acted very human. He was friendly and amicable, but now he was acting like a true demon. Ecchi wondered which side was his true face. All of a sudden, Felix raised 2 of his fingers and swiped down in a cutting motion. Ecchi felt all of his senses warn him of an incoming danger, but before he could react, he felt his left arm be cut off. Gah! Ecchi groaned as a geyser of blood erupted from his arm. He immediately began suppressing the wound in order to make sure he did not die due to blood loss. He was quickly able to suppress the pain he was feeling and focus on the Demon Lord in front of him. Anti-skill is not capable of nullifying an attack that has come from 2 different sources, like a skill and soul magic. Felix spoke out loud as if he were educating him. Damn it! He had hoped Felix would not catch on to anti-skill's one weakness. When one used an attack with 2 different sources, like a skill and battle will, he could not nullify both at once with anti-skill. And what did he mean by soul magic? Ecchi had not heard of that kind of magic. Anti-skill is useful to tear through one's defenses, but it is not very good on the defense itself, huh? Commented Felix. Ecchi hated to admit it, but he was right. Anti-skill was incredibly versatile when facing skills, magics, or battle will separately. However, when one merged them, it proved to be ineffective. Thankfully, not many people seem to know how to combine multiple systems, or so Ecchi thought. But it seems Demon Lord Felix was capable of such a thing. Ecchi was feeling his chances of making it out were becoming slimmer and slimmer. He could only hope Kagli made it here in time. He began analyzing the situation, desperately hoping to discover a way out of this predicament. The only plus side he could think of was that Felix was looking down on him. He was underestimating Ecchi, which could be used to gain the advantage at some point. He began going through his abilities, hoping to find a way out. He had his newest unique skill, Greed, and then the unique skill he received upon crossing into this world, Creator. He had various other abilities he was able to acquire through Creator over the years, but they would be useless in this type of fight. Thanks to thought acceleration, he was able to acquire a moment to think. He focused on Greed and came up with an idea, a last-ditch attempt before his true last-ditch attempt. He raised his palm in the direction of the Demon Lord. Take this. Death Wish. A wave of darkness was released from his palm and quickly made its way towards Felix. This was his fastest attack so far. If Felix could dodge this, then none of his future attacks would be capable of reaching the Demon Lord. Death Wish was an art he had just invented using Greed. No one could deny that he was a genius, creating an art for a skill he had for only a few minutes. Death Wish converted the user's will to live into the will to die. In front of Yuki's eyes, his hopes were crushed, not because the Demon Lord had moved out of the way, but because he stood there uncaringly and watched as the attack completely circled around him. However, Death Wish did not do what it was meant to, as the Demon Lord was still standing in front of him, seemingly perfectly okay. That is an interesting way to use greed. Now, do you have anything more to show me? I'd like to crush your hopes and dreams some more. The Demon Lord said with a happy smile, causing Yuki to shiver. He could only hope and pray that Kagli was almost here, but perhaps that was cruel. He was not sure if even all his forces would be able to take on this demon. I bet you're hoping your allies are on their way, huh? Well, unfortunately for you, I prepared for that ahead of time. I created a barrier around the area that blocked the signal you sent entirely. As impressive as the artifact you used was, it isn't enough to break through a barrier I set up. Yuki felt his blood turn cold after hearing that statement. He was truly on his own, wasn't he? Perhaps he could attempt to run away and use anti-skill to tear through the barriers that the Demon Lord placed. But he quickly discarded that idea. He was incapable of teleportation without making preparations beforehand, not to mention the demon won't allow him to get far enough away from him to even use anti-skill to break through the barriers. From the feats that Felix has shown so far, he was almost certain that Felix was faster than him. I still have one more move. Yuki grit out. His only hope was that this gamble of his would work. The Demon Lord was foolish for allowing him to do what he was about to do. Oh? Well, show me then, ordered Felix. He concentrated all his power on his one desire, on his desire to rebuild his body, to create a body that would allow him to defeat this demon. Through Creator, such a thing was possible. He absorbed all the surrounding energy and felt himself evolve from a human into an enlightened, and as he began evolving into a saint, Yuki closed his eyes and ventured deep into his heart. He reaffirmed his desire to conquer the world, to create a world where he and his friends could truly laugh. He felt someone or something offer him power. Take my hand, I will give you the power to defeat the demon. Somehow, Yuki knew that if he accepted that offer, he would lose himself. He refused to let such a thing happen. Who was this being to offer him power? Since when had Yuki ever been given anything? He had worked himself to the bone for the power he had now, and it was still not enough. If it was not enough, he would just have to snatch more. His wish was brought to the forefront of his mind. He refused to die here. He would win. Come. Give me your power. He began stealing power from the mysterious entity inside of him. An entity he had discovered was his newly acquired skill. Stop. All of a sudden, he felt a voice resound in his head. Confirmed. Condition satisfied. The unique skill, greed, will evolve into the ultimate skill, ma'am. All of a sudden, Yuki felt a hand pierce his heart. His blood went cold, feeling all of his instincts screaming at him to run. What? Why, you said? Yuki whispered, trying to speak through his destroyed lungs. Well, I lied. Like, how am I going to let you get your real shonen power up? I mean, what the fuck even was that? You almost instantly became an enlightened and began becoming a saint, and then on top of that, you began evolving one of your unique skills into an ultimate skill? I mean, what the fuck, dude? An ultimate skill? Was that the power he was going to acquire? He felt his hatred for the demon rise. This demon prevented him from receiving his rightfully earned power. The world itself agreed with him. And yet this demon took it all away. He couldn't even activate anti-skill in the hopes of getting out of this predicament. His physical body was in the midst of being reconstructed, making anti-skill temporarily inaccessible. He felt a mysterious energy seep into his body, rapidly invading his spiritual and astral body. Damn it. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. Are you done with your tantrum now? Mocked the Demon Lord, who still had his fist in his chest. He attempted to extract himself, to free himself and flee somehow, but Felix had somehow prevented him from moving. All of a sudden, he felt a soul-agonizing pain. Gah! The pain only grew stronger and stronger as he felt someone squeeze down on his very soul. This continued for a few minutes before Yuki gave in. Stop. He felt the pressure on his being loosen, allowing him to sigh in relief. Who knew squeezing one's core, to the point of almost bursting, could cause that much pain? Good to know. Commented the demon uncaringly, as if he was not the one who had tortured him. Perhaps I should have allowed you to send that signal. I could have taken care of Kagli and all of your friends all at once. Doesn't that sound nice? You could all die together. Stay away from them. Yuki grit out. Oh? And who are you to ask me anything? You guys have committed many deplorable deeds, slavery, murder, kidnapping, otherworlder summonings, and many, many other things. Like how you deserve mercy. I'm not some enforcer of justice, but one thing I hate is hypocrites, and you, Yuki, are a hypocrite. Yuki closed his eyes and sighed. He knew this was his end. He had failed. His dream would not come true. He thought back to Kagle, his ally from the start. He may have taken pity on the wandering spirit at first, but he had grown to genuinely care for the woman. Then there was Clayman, the friend whose death he caused. He would never free himself from that sin. Then there was Footman, who died completing Clayman's orders, and Tyr, who barely made it out alive. He thought back to Damrada. He wished he had taken that artifact of his, perhaps it would have allowed him to escape unharmed. He thought back to all his friends and felt his eyes begin to tear up. He could only pray that they would stay away, that they would stay out of this monster's path. He wanted them to live a long life after all. And then he thought back to a certain slime. He had never hated Rimuru, even after all this. This demon's actions were solely his own. He knew he was in the wrong after all. I'm sorry, Rimuru. Maybe in another world, we could have worked together. We could have built a world in which we could smile. Clayman. I should have stopped you. I saw you losing yourself, and I let you. Footman. You always protected everyone, and I failed to protect you. Tyr. You are gonna cry, aren't you? I'm sorry. I really wanted to make things better for you. Laplace. You always were the most reasonable one out of us. Always hiding your strength. You really took our burden. You always made sure to take the blame when things went wrong. I'm sorry, Kagle. I should have been more careful. I should have. Before he could even finish his thoughts, he felt his mind going dark. So with the last of his strength he sent one final message. Take care of Tyr, won't you? Make a world where the two of you can smile. Well, I've wasted enough time here. Don't expect to be reincarnated. I'll be eating your soul. Nighty-night. Chapter 123, Framing Well, I've wasted enough time here. Don't expect to be reincarnated. I'll be eating your soul. Nighty-night. After saying that, I sliced upwards. My hand was held vertically, almost as if it were a blade of some kind. It may as well be a blade with how much force I could bring to bear. I quickly cut through Yuki's body, even his head, leaving his upper body cut in half vertically. Blood splattered everywhere, though my infinity protected me from getting dirty. The deaths of both Hinata and Sako have been avenged. It didn't matter to me that both were technically alive. Yuki had crossed me, so he suffered for it. I was a tyrant, and I accepted that part of myself. But hey, just because I usually was too lazy to act out didn't mean I wasn't a demon. Since Yuki was still in the process of becoming a true spiritual being, his body had not completely turned into energy, leaving him still filled with lifeblood. Still, just to be sure he stayed dead, I infused my hand with some divinity, shredding apart Yuki's spiritual and astral body. Yuki may have been able to nullify my divinity with anti-skill if he tried, but his evolution worked against him in this case, as his spiritual body was also changing, not to mention he was far too drained for such a thing. I cleared up the storm I had generated with a wave of my hand. All in all, Yuki was an easy threat to deal with, easier than I thought he would be. He was skilled, that was for sure. But no amount of skill is enough when you aren't even in the same dimension as your opponent, figuratively, of course. I didn't even need to use any weapons against the guy. Hell, I barely tried at all. I honestly expected more from him. It seems I was making him out to be a big threat in my head when, in reality, he was just Yuki. So much for that. I was able to easily cut his arm off using Infinity Soul magic in combination with our Ouroboros, easily bypassing anti-skill due to being from two sources. Not that the attack was weak, it was capable of slicing through even dimensions after all. Hell, I could have easily killed him with that one move by cutting his body apart. That was enough to prove to me that anti-skill would not be all that useful in high-level fights. Perhaps it may have its uses when attacking someone. I could see it being useful if the enemy does not expect it. I can use it to bypass barriers my enemies are confident in, and various other things, but it did a piss-poor job at defense if the enemy was aware of it, that was for sure. I know that, for certain, I would easily be able to dismantle it and find out its weaknesses. Though I did want to test some more stuff on Yuki, but I didn't expect the fight to be so easy, ignoring the sudden power-up Yuki was about to get. Laplace seriously hyped Yuki up way too much. I was getting a little bit excited for the battle. I looked down at Yuki's body. His upper body was split in half, while his lower body remained as is. Perhaps I was cruel, perhaps I was lenient, who knows, but I finally got my revenge. Though I gave the body one final kick for good measure. I noticed his left arm, which I had cut off, had almost completely regenerated, likely due to almost becoming a saint, a complete saint too, unlike even Hinata, who was known as a prodigy among prodigies. As a complete saint, he likely would have been capable of exerting far more power than he previously was, likely over 30 times more strength than a normal human, and that was just base physical strength, not mentioning aura reinforcement or any reinforcement spells. There was no way I would allow him to get that kind of power-up. Sure, I still believe that he wouldn't be a challenge to take care of. In fact, I was planning to allow him to become a complete saint at first. I could get a bit of a power-up from consuming his soul that way, after all. It was when I noticed an ultimate skill forming in his soul that I decided to kill him before he could become an ultimate awakened. I was easily able to notice the ultimate skill forming due to seeing an ultimate skill form in Luminous's own soul. Perhaps I wouldn't have recognized what was occurring if it wasn't for that, though I doubt it. An ultimate skill was too much of a wild card for me to allow. He could have received any kind of ability for all I know. I did want to see if I could get any more information out of Ecchi, but it is what it is. I'd rather him be dead than awaken an ultimate skill. I wasn't going to let that happen on the off chance he got an ultimate skill that allowed him to get out of this situation. I was not going to act like a shitty anime villain. And even if I was going to be a villain, I was going to be a damn good one, not one that let the shonen protagonist completely power up in the hopes for a good fight or anything equally asinine. I'm looking at you, Aizen Sosuke. The man was a genius, far smarter than anyone I know except Odin, and yet he created the very same being that would defeat him. Some of these villains, man. Sometimes they get so carried away with all their plans and crap that they end up overlooking the fact that they are about to get whomped. One thing I did notice was that I had acted far more demon-like today, more than I ever have. But, I didn't really care. At the end of the day, I was a demon now. I like to think my true nature hasn't changed, and I still believe that. I never advertised myself as a good person, after all. I'm just some lucky bastard who got his hands on a ton of power. But seriously, what kind of bullshit is this guy? He almost became a saint on command. When I killed him, he was in the midst of awakening, he was a pseudo-saint of sorts, and then, on top of that he began evolving his skill into an ultimate skill. People don't just do that. Honestly, the thought of it made me want to give him another kick. Though I was also bullshit like that. When I killed him, his soul was in the midst of growing stronger. I imagine that is the only reason he was able to even possibly acquire an ultimate skill. His soul had grown powerful enough to contain one. I sighed, well at least he didn't get his shonen power up. After I pierced his heart, Odin was able to easily interfere with his soul, preventing the ultimate skill from taking form. Odin's masterful manipulation of information particles has come in handy once again. That's also how I was able to pressure his heart core as well. Earlier, I was curious as to what his goals were with Mariabelle, so I allowed him to kill her. Even when he took her skill, I wasn't worried, I was just curious, and then he goes and pulls some bullshit. How did he take greed from Mariabelle anyway, Odin? It is likely that the unique skill, greed, chose him all on its own. Sincere skills are capable of leaving their hosts if they find a more suitable one. Ecchi was simply more compatible than Mariabelle. Huh, I see. I looked at Mariabelle's body. There was a hole in her chest left from Ecchi piercing her. Well, she deserved it. I wasn't lying when I said I didn't care for her anymore. Perhaps I could have used her to gain power in the West, but I don't care all that much about that. I already helped Rimuru by getting her to invite Tempest to the Council of the West. He can handle things from there. I did make sure to quickly grab and consume Mariabelle's soul, though. Her soul was torn up due to greed being ripped out of her, but I wasn't going to deny a free boost to my power, no matter how minuscule it was. I sensed the surrounding area outside my barriers. I decided to make sure no one was coming in this direction, and thankfully, no one was, though I did sense plenty of monsters and magic beasts nearby. I imagine they would have all run away fearfully if I hadn't put the barriers up. Thanks to my barriers, the fight was kept contained, and even the environmental damage was kept to a minimum. This fight hadn't even lasted 10 minutes, and most of that was my conversation with Ecchi, a disappointing conversation, too. But I'm not sure what I expected in the first place. I still had to take care of taming some monsters in order to frame this incident as a monster attack. I also still had those guards stored in my infinity space. Afterwards, I'll teleport to Ruberius. Luminous did offer to send some members of the Western Holy Church here in order to confirm the monster attack after all. The Western Holy Church saying such a thing will give the incident a lot more credibility. Not to mention, I can tease her some more. Hopefully, she isn't still mad at me, though. But before all that, I aimed my palm in the direction of Ecchi's corpse. Beelzebub. A swirl of darkness appeared in front of me, consuming Ecchi's physical body and soul. I intend to keep my promise, after all, that Ecchi will not reincarnate. Once Odin analyzes anti-skill some more, perhaps I can directly create some anti-skill weapons to hand out. I'm sure Rimuru will find them useful, as will my own people. Ultimate skill, Mammon, Lord of Greed has been analyzed. Huh? Unique skill, Creator has been acquired. Huh? I don't even know what to think. I know consuming beings with Beelzebub basically gives me all their skills as well as a portion of their power, so I'm not as surprised that I got Yuki's unique skill, no matter how busted it seems to be. But Mammon? How did you manage that, Odin? Answer. The information for the ultimate skill, Mammon, Lord of Greed, was still engraved onto Yuki Kagorazaka's soul. Odin was able to decipher the information and obtain enough data to recreate the ultimate skill, Mammon, Lord of Greed. Well, damn. Good work, Odin. It is Odin's duty. Huh. That's another Synth series ultimate skill for me. I have Satanael, Lord of Wrath, Beelzebub, Lord of Gluttony, and then I have the data for Asmodeus, Lord of Lust, and now Mammon, Lord of Greed. That's 4 out of the 7 sins. That leaves sloth, pride, and envy, and I'm sure they'll turn up eventually. I have the data for a good amount of Virtue series skills as well. Uriel, Lord of Vows, Raphael, Lord of Wisdom, Metatron, Lord of Purity, and Gabriel, Lord of Patience. That's also 4 out of the 7 virtues. Each virtue skill is a piece of Veldin of his divine authority. I wonder what would happen if I gathered all of them. I focused on my newest acquisition, Mammon, Lord of Greed. Yuki was not developing a game-changing ultimate skill like I had feared. It was powerful as hell, as all ultimate skills are, but it would not allow him to escape this situation. Mammon's essence is that of taking things from others, and this can be shown in its sub-skills. The first sub-skill, Absorb Life, allows a user to suck out the various energies of a target and make them the user's own. When someone uses any of the various energies stored in the body, they are reducing their existence points, as existence points are based upon how much energy is in your body. With Absorb Life you can basically forcefully reduce the existence points of someone else while increasing your own, which I thought was fairly interesting. Then there is Control Heart, which is basically the mind control aspect of greed, except that it is strengthened by an extreme amount. Even I would be wary of being mind controlled by this if I didn't have Odin to protect me from those types of external influences. Then there is Multi-Layer Barrier, which might be considered basic to me now, but is still a very powerful ability. Multi-Layer Barrier can protect its users fairly well. After all, it can even block physical attacks, and at my level, practically nothing will be capable of piercing a multi-layer barrier I place with the express purpose of physically protecting me. Then there was Thought Acceleration, but the main ability I was interested in was the last sub-skill, Skill Steal. Skill Steal allows the user to steal the skills of their opponent. Of course, this has a limit. Skills engraved into the hardcore, like ultimate skills and certain unique skills, are off limits, but other than that, the sky's the limit. Mammon would be very effective for stealing unique skills alone. Most unique skills are engraved in the spirit or the physical body, allowing them to be stolen. Only a very small portion of unique skills are stored in the hardcore, like the Synth series skills. Though it seems unstable, ultimate skills can be stolen, like those that have been given rather than earned. Still, Mammon is an incredibly powerful skill. It just wouldn't have helped Yuki out of his situation. Then there was the unique skill, Creator, which I gained. Now this, in my opinion, is more valuable than even Mammon due to the sheer potential it possesses. It is only a unique skill, but Creator is quite literally bullshit. It allows the user to freely manipulate their soul energy and change its form into various different energies, and that is one of its most basic uses. It had analytical appraisal, which allowed Yuki to get a detailed analysis of any target, a useful ability for anyone to have. But that wasn't all. It could also create skills. Nothing too powerful, of course. Unique skills were impossible, and the resulting skill would be based on the user's desires, but that's still absolutely bullshit. I have come to find that Yuki is bullshit. Still, this skill could not be used all the time. Soul energy is not easily recovered. Creating a skill uses a vast amount of soul energy and will often take years for even an enhanced human like Yuki to recover it to its former state. It was quite similar to traditionally naming monsters, as if one was not prepared, one would lose a portion of one's magicules permanently. Still, the sheer potential Creator had was absurd. If it evolved into an ultimate skill, who knows what its limits could be. Of course, it wouldn't be anything super broken like omnipotence, it would still be limited by the user, but an ultimate skill version of Creator could possibly allow one to reach and surpass the levels of the true dragons if the user plays things right. I'm almost completely certain that this skill is what allowed Yuki to spontaneously begin evolving into a saint. I just don't see how he could have done what he did otherwise. To become an enlightened, one needs to break a mental barrier and ascend into a half-spiritual state. And then, to become a saint, one needs to awaken and become a true spiritual life form. Yuki managed to instantly become an enlightened and begin the process of becoming a saint in less than a second. Creator is the only answer as to how he did that. He may have even granted himself anti-skill with it. In fact, he likely did exactly that. This skill is just hacks. If Ecchi had managed to evolve this in our fight, I'd have actually been worried. Query. Would the master like for Odin to begin the process of evolving the unique skill, creator, into an ultimate skill? My non-existent heart almost stopped beating when I heard what Odin had just said. You can do that? Yes. Well, damn. What would the costs be? Manifesting an ultimate skill results in a significant portion of one's magicule capacity being reduced. Manifesting any type of skill reduces overall magicule capacity. It is likely that the master would lose over 6 million existence points. Ouch. I did gain some existence points from consuming the Chaos Dragon, but even still, 6 million EP is a lot. That's more than double the EP that Megaman possesses, and she has the most EP among all my subordinates. Is there any other way, Odin? I doubted it. There is always a cost to power, and trying to circumvent that might as well be considered taboo, but it couldn't hurt to ask. It is possible, however it will take some time. Using Ecchi Kagorazaka's awakened soul as fuel, it is possible to evolve the unique skill, creator, into its ultimate form. This method will decrease the amount of energy lost to fuel the evolution of the skill. Do that then. I don't mind waiting if I can avoid losing some of my power that way. How long will it be? Due to Odin making some modifications to the skill, as well as fully processing the soul, it may take up to 3 months. Great, start that then. Affirmative. 3 months was not long at all, especially when considering I'll be getting a new ultimate skill at the end of it. Still, that would give me 5 ultimate skills. I imagine that is my limit. Correct. Any more than 5 ultimate skills will cause the master's soul to begin collapsing. Well, giving that last slot to creator is probably the best move, anyway. I am quite curious about what kind of abilities the ultimate skill version of creator would have. Creator was a skill with an essence focused on creation, after all. It would no doubt be able to create skills, but I didn't think that was as big a boon as it seemed to be. I highly doubted it would be capable of creating ultimate skills. Even unique skills may be a stretch, and besides, Odin can already create new skills with all the data she has acquired over time. So sure, the ability is broken, but Odin is already more broken. What I'm interested in is its ability to create other things. I had already experimented in the past with creating an entirely new dimension, with oxygen and various other things. However, I could not change the laws that the dimension functioned on, since, by default, it was still linked to the dimension it was created in. Sort of like a secondary dimension within another dimension. But with the ultimate skill version of creator, perhaps it would be possible to create a new dimension entirely separate, one with its own unique laws. That's practically creating an entirely new universe. Not to mention I can likely create matter. I may be able to mass produce my Deathman body, not that I need to, but having the option to create a physical body that is at the peak of power, one that can be possessed by spiritual beings like demons and elementals, may come in handy at some point. I could likely gain the ability to create even stars, a cosmic phenomenon. I was incredibly adept at causing destruction, but creating something of my own sounded incredible to me. Then, there was the last thing that I considered. Creating souls. If I could create souls, that would be an absolute game changer. Of course, even if I could create souls from scratch, I still wouldn't use it to power up my subordinates through a harvest festival. Since for a soul to be used as fuel in a harvest festival it needs to have a solid ego, they need to be considered a person. I wasn't all that comfortable with creating a living being with its own ego and then just killing it right after. Literal spawn killing. Sure, I could program them to be happy about being used as fuel, but I had another idea. If I could create souls, that means I could create soul energy. Soul energy is what is used to fuel the harvest festival. Souls are just the mediums in which soul energy is harvested for the harvest festival. Notice. That is unlikely but possible, from the data Odin has gathered. Creating a brand new soul is a level higher than what the master is capable of as of right now. Odin has hypothesized that it is theoretically possible to create a soul and, by extension, soul power in the future after more data is gathered, but as of right now, Odin does not possess the processing power required for such a feat. Well, that sucks. Creating true life is beyond me for now, huh? It is impossible to predict exactly how creator will develop as an ultimate skill. It may provide Odin with sufficient data to create souls. Hope is not lost. Well, even if creating true life is impossible, I'd like to think of evolving creator into an ultimate skill as the first step to something much more grand. It may as well be the first step to truly creating something that is completely my own. Perhaps one day I can create my own universe, with its own unique laws and its own unique living beings. Who would stop me anyway? Valdanova is long gone, and I don't think he would mind one of his creations experimenting with creation itself. Creating a universe would be a fun experiment. I probably shouldn't think of something like that as just an experiment, huh? Still, That means I'll need to come up with a different way to get the souls in order to trigger the harvest festivals of my subordinates. I had no intention of forcefully holding them back after all. I trusted each of them enough, to the point I didn't think for a moment that any of them would betray me. Well, I'll think of something eventually. What about anti-skill? Could you recreate the spiritual constitution in my body? The spiritual constitution has been thoroughly analyzed when a master consumed Yoki Kagorazaka with Beelzebub, and it is theoretically possible to currently recreate it with Creator at some cost. However, it is recommended that the master waits until Odin has finished evolving Creator for the best and safest results. I'll leave the decision to you. I'm not in desperate need of anti-skill. The master's safety is Odin's priority. Modifying the spiritual body to that extent must be done with caution. You're the boss, I'll wait then. I imagine that modifying my spiritual body to give it the anti-skill attribute is a lot like surgery on a spiritual level, so it was probably best to do such a thing with a healthy amount of caution. I could have probably used anti-skill to break Cronoa's seal completely, but it isn't a big deal. Luminous is already working on the unsealing anyway. Waiting a little while isn't a problem. Unfortunately, I couldn't access Yuki's memories. His core was damaged quite a bit from having the formation of an ultimate skill interrupted, so that's rather unfortunate. Welp, it's cleanup time now. Rimuru Tempest. He sat back in his chair and thought back to the words he heard earlier. I'm sorry, Rimuru. He knew without a doubt that Yuki was the one who had said those words. Rimuru had no idea about how Yuki's words reached him, but it was still more than enough to confirm one thing to Rimuru. Yuki was dead, and Felix killed him. He knew he shouldn't feel sad. With all the misery Yuki had caused, his death was practically deserved. He would have more than earned the death sentence back on Earth. But still, Rimuru couldn't help but feel sad. He thought back to the past, when he and Yuki would talk about manga, talk about Shizu, and talk about their experiences in this world. He wished things could have turned out differently, but he knew Felix would not take his protest well. He couldn't even fault Felix for that. Any normal person with the information they had could see that Yuki was a threat that needed to be taken care of. Even Raphael had agreed that killing Yuki was the optimal course of action and that allowing him to live would likely only bring more hardship to Tempest. At least this attack on Tempest exposed a flaw in Tempest's defense. Due to so many guests being around, most human royalty and human nobles, so they had to take down the always-running anti-magic area in order to make the guests feel a bit more comfortable, as the anti-magic area would restrict their subordinates heavily should this be a planned ambush by Tempest. He had ordered his subordinates to increase the defense, but it seemed that was not enough. He would need to find a better way of scouting out threats to Tempest, and he knew just how to go about doing that. Sai had been very hard on himself, blaming himself for the breach in security, but if even he, an actual demon lord, didn't see the attack coming, he wasn't going to blame Sai for it. Still, Sai had been training his subordinates far harder, so that such a situation would not happen again. He sighed again. He needed a drink. Before he could go to Traiani's bar, he was interrupted. Lord Rimuru. He heard the person knocking call out. He sighed. Come in, Diablo. The door opened, and in came Diablo, who quickly bowed. Did you need something, Diablo? Diablo nodded. Yes, my lord. I had a request. A request from Diablo? Diablo had never asked him for anything before. He would be a bad boss if he refused him now. Sure, what is it? Diablo nodded. Would you allow me to temporarily return to the demon realm and recruit some subordinates to handle my more miscellaneous tasks? This way I can spend more time directly doing as you wish. Rimuru did always think that having Diablo take care of his more basic needs was a waste. He nodded. Yeah, sure, someone of your station shouldn't be making tea for me in the first place. You deserve more than that. All of a sudden, a profound look of loss appeared on Diablo's face. No, my lord. Personally, serving you has been the most enjoyable thing I have taken part in ever since my birth. Please do not take this away from me, my lord. I beg you. Huh? Did he misunderstand? Then what did you want to recruit subordinates for? That was so they could take care of the trivial tasks, like subjugating nations, destroying nations that go against your will, not to mention they will assist in protecting Tempest from external threats. If they can take care of that, then I can afford to be by your side more often, said Diablo. Hold on a second. Destroying nations? Where did that come from? There will be no destroying of nations, Diablo. Diablo nodded. I see. It seems I had misunderstood. But still, you can go recruit those demons you were talking about. Felix said that they were useful and were good assistants to his own subordinates, so I'm sure they can be of use to you. Diablo nodded. One thing I may have trouble with is preparing enough bodies for them to incarnate in without going on a massacre. Yeah, you won't be going on a massacre anytime soon, Diablo. Would a body like the one I gave to Beretta work? Diablo nodded. Yes, that will work perfectly. I will be recruiting demons from primarily my own lineage as Arcuaid, Megaman, and Lalitina's subordinates will be more loyal to their progenitors. He nodded. Sounds good to me. How many bodies did you need? He tilted his head. A couple hundred should do. He could feel his eyes widen. That's a lot of demons, but I guess I can make it work. Thank you, I will return soon, my lord. And with that, Diablo vanished. Now he can go get his drink. I looked down at the scene of the crime. Monsters and magic beasts were now littered around the area. I had even gone out of the way to kill a few of them to show some signs of battle. I used a combination of my spiritual domination and Kurami's beast domination to get them to do what I wanted. It wasn't all that hard to do. Since Yuki's entire body was consumed by me, I didn't need to arrange anything for his body except for shifting around some of the blood marks to make it look like he was eaten by a monster. However, I didn't consume Mariabelle's physical body since I had no real reason to. It wouldn't add to my power at all, so I ordered the monsters to eat her body. It wouldn't make sense for them to eat Yuki's body but leave Mariabelle's alone now, would it? I was being very careful about this, even if I likely didn't need to be. Better safe than sorry, after all. The death of the guild master of the Free Guild was a big thing to the public after all. Mariabelle was also important, but that would be due to being a princess since her vast political power remains mostly unknown to the public. Yuki had made many changes to this world. He created a new adventurer system that drastically reduced the death rate of adventurers. He was a student of the Conqueror of Flames and an associate of Hinata. He basically had all the adventurers registered with the Free Guild basically under his command. He may as well have been considered a king with no territory. The public will definitely be surprised by his death. I'm sure there will be all sorts of theories out there about how he died, so I need to make sure his death does not lead to Rimuru or me. Yuki was considered to be fairly strong, but he was never known to be a champion. It would make sense if he was overwhelmed by a large horde of monsters. As to why he is in this area? Well, he could be looking to create a branch of the Free Guild in the kingdom of Siltrasso, which is why he is with that kingdom's princess. I'm sure some people won't buy this, like Granblaroso and Cagley, but I don't need to worry about them now. Granbla's in hiding, while Cagley is restricted to the strength of a mere greater Magin. I looked down one last time before snapping my fingers and appearing in Luminous's palace in Night Garden. I had transported myself to the lounge in Luminous Palace. I flared my aura slightly to inform her that I was there and then took a seat on one of the love seats. Gunter appeared in front of me. Lord Felix, Lady Luminous was not expecting you today. Now that I know he was one of the true ancestors of the vampires, I respected him a bit more, if only for his sheer history. Yeah, I'm just here to discuss something with her if you could call her. Gunter nodded. Lady Luminous will meet you shortly. She is getting ready. Getting ready? Getting ready for what? Would you like tea and snacks in the meantime? Asked Gunter. I nodded. Yeah, bring me whatever you think is good, thanks Gunter. He gave me a short bow and then vanished into the shadows. Shadow motion is a neat skill. Now that I think about it, Luminous is kind of similar to Arcuaid from Tsukuheim. Arcuaid is considered the true ancestor of vampires, a terminal of Gaia, but is inherently different from dead apostles. Luminous is similar. She can be said to be a true ancestor of vampires but is also inherently different from them. It didn't take long for Gunter to return with tea and pastries. Oh, this is actually quite good. Thank you for the praise, Lord Felix. Responded Gunter. So you are one of the vampire true ancestors. Why did you decide to serve Luminous? Some of your fellow true ancestors became rulers on their own, why didn't you? Gunter took a moment to respond. I simply wished to serve Lady Luminous from the bottom of my heart from the moment I laid eyes on her. She is truly the perfect being, and it would be my honor to serve perfection. Luminous? Perfect? Well, to each his own. I commented. Oh? Did you have a problem with what Gunter said, Felix? Ah, there she is. I turned to look at Luminous and froze. Well, you look different today. I commented with a raised brow. I gave Luminous a once-over. She was dressed in a revealing black dress, one that showed off plenty of cleavage, yum. I gave her a thumbs up. Looking good. Humphrey. I am always looking good. Haha, well, that's true. For some reason, my comment made Luminous blush, weird. So what's the occasion? You usually wear your black frilled dress. I asked. I am free to change how I dress whenever I wish, Felix. She replied, acting slightly annoyed. I shrugged my shoulders. That's true. I was just curious if there was any reason for the sudden wardrobe change. Luminous glared at me and then turned away. If she wasn't a divine and spiritual life form, I would be wondering if she was on her period. Women. Well then, what are you here for? Asked Luminous, giving me a bit of a side eye. Ah, right. I killed Ecchi, while Mariabelle ended up dying due to an unfortunate series of events. Earlier, you said that you were willing to send some holy knights to the location and confirm it as a monster attack, right? Luminous nodded with a vicious smirk. It is good that you took care of that cretin. If being in my presence was not a reward on its own, I would have rewarded you. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, right. Being in my presence is a reward, Luminous. I extended my hand outwards. Pay up. If you don't, I'll spank you. I must get in my teasing. Luminous is just too fun to bully, cough tease. Really, it's her own fault. Thankfully, Gunter had left once Luminous had shown up. Otherwise, I imagine he would have been extremely offended on behalf of his mistress. Though contrary to what I expected, Luminous didn't seem to be getting angry. No, she simply blushed and looked away. Now I'm confused. Maybe she's having an off day? Luminous coughed lightly. Moving on. I had an idea about how to go about framing the deaths of Ecchi and Mariabelle. Oh? Let me hear it then. Luminous nodded. You are aware that Laplace had attempted to invade my palace in Night Garden after the Walpurgis, correct? I nodded. Yeah, that's when Roy died. What about it? Well, I was considering the possibility that I would send some holy knights loyal to me and Louis to the scene, and have them coincidentally find some sort of evidence linking the deaths of Ecchi and Mariabelle to a certain group of clown mercenaries. Said Luminous, who now had a devilish smirk. Hey, that would be pretty funny. I wonder how Cagley and the rest of Ecchi's allies would react to that. But would the public believe it? Luminous rolled her eyes but nodded. You underestimate the kind of bias humans have against non-humans, most likely wouldn't even question it if the Western Holy Church declared it was a group of Magan responsible for it. It would be even more believable than a monster attack, at the very least. That's true. I did already make it look like a monster attack, though. Both the bodies are gone. That is no problem. I told you that it would be holy knights loyal to Louis and I. They will not question anything and will do what they are ordered to, even if that means making an announcement to the public confirming the death of Ecchi Kagorazaka and the princess of a small kingdom. Luminous said haughtily. Well, if you're sure about this. I hope you realize how important it is to make sure this isn't traced back to us, Luminous. Of course I do. Luminous scoffed. I nodded. Good then, alright, I'll trust you. Luminous smiled at me. Good. Luminous bent forward slightly to pick up one of the pastries Gunter left on the table, giving me an ample view of Luminous's cleavage. She may not have the largest breasts I've seen, but I can see why there is a cult formed around her. I looked up slightly and met Luminous's gaze. She had a smug smirk on her face for some reason. Ah, she must have caught me staring, oops. Enjoying the view, Felix? Luminous teased. I nodded unashamed. Of course. I can see why a cult has formed around you now. In fact, I am willing to convert now. What? She blurted out, clearly caught off guard by my comment. For all her experience, she really was just a hag that was weak on the defense. Though it would be pretty funny if I became one of Luminous's cultists. The people's reactions would be something. Luminous was looking at me with a blush. Hey, don't tease me if you can't handle being teased back. Luminous nibbled on the pastry to hide her embarrassment. For some reason, she reminded me of a squirrel. Cute. Huh? Ah, I said that out loud. Nothing, ignore that. Luminous nodded slightly. We sat in silence while we ate our respective pastries. After some time, I broke the silence. Have you been practicing your new skill? When one acquires a new skill, they generally need to practice it and learn the ins and outs of it. Only when a skill is truly mastered is it a threat. Thanks to Odin, I don't have to bother with that, but Luminous doesn't have some supercomputer in her head that has perfect control over her abilities. So if she wishes to effectively wield Asmodeus, she is going to need to train. Luminous blushed and looked away. Oh, of course I have. I sighed. You haven't trained once, have you? I do not know what you are talking about. Luminous continued to deny it. Come on, Luminous. You should know that you need to learn how to best use your new skill. Asmodeus is similar to Lust but just cranked up to 100. With Asmodeus, many new abilities are now available to Luminous. Actually, Mammon and Asmodeus do seem to be relatively compatible. I wonder what kind of skill would come out of the merging of those two. Or perhaps even Metatron merged with Asmodeus, two opposing aspects. Luminous already had Asmodeus, and she is a master of holy magic, so she can likely manipulate spiritrons at a very high level, which is what Metatron focuses on. Perhaps I can do Luminous the favor of upgrading her skill at some point if she proves worthy enough. Ugh, you should have gotten Sloth, not Lust, with how lazy you are. Lazy. I am not lazy. Defended Luminous. I stared her dead in the eyes. Seriously? Hinata has told me about how many times she has found you laying on the couch doing literally nothing. In fact, that's how you primarily spend your days. Luminous grit her teeth. Grrr, that traitor. When was the last time you even went out? I asked. Luminous looked thoughtful before shrugging. Before the Tempest Founding Festival, I had not gone out for decades, perhaps. I groaned. Ugh, you are seriously a neat. How have you not done anything for decades? I can never understand how you long-lived beings just do nothing. Luminous shrugged her shoulders. You are young, Felix. You will come to understand the boredom that comes with immortality in a few centuries. And by neat, do you mean the term you referred to Velzard as in the past? I nodded. Yeah, it seems she was listening in on our conversation. Thankfully, she didn't seem too upset. Luminous pouted. I am no neat. Being a goddess is not easy, you know. Huh, sure it is. I am surprised that the Frost Dragon did not attack you for such a thing. She does not seem like one to be very understanding. I shrugged my shoulders. Who knows, maybe Guy was tempering her. Perhaps. Luminous finished her pastry and then laid down on the couch she was sitting on. Seriously? Luminous huffed. I can act however I wish in my own home. Ugh, I always thought you were some sophisticated noble. But then that image was shattered when I got to know you. Luminous is just a lazy brat. I cannot be convinced otherwise. Luminous rolled her eyes. I am a demon lord, and I act as befitting of my station when I am with others, but if I cannot act how I wish with a friend, then what is the point? I guess that's true. But seriously, you're too lazy. I am taking it upon myself to take you out today. Oh? You will take me out? I nodded. Yeah, we can go out to eat and go around your territory. Luminous sighed, though I could tell she was concealing a smile. Very well then, I shall humor you. I rolled my eyes. Luminous was still acting prideful even after all this. Sure, whatever you say. Now, let's have fun on our date. Luminous' eyes widened. D-date? I nodded with a smirk. Of course. What else could this be? Luminous froze for a moment before nodding. I suppose this does fit the qualification to be considered a date, according to Hinata. Seriously? Just what has Hinata been telling Luminous? And I was joking, too. Perhaps Hinata didn't explain the full meaning of what going on a date means in modern society on Earth. Luminous may just think it is a friendly outing between friends. Yeah, that's probably it. No way that Luminous Valentine would knowingly go on a date with me, no matter how attractive and sexy I am. Even I would have trouble believing that. I got up off the love seat and extended my hand. Alright, now let's go. Luminous rolled her eyes but took my hand nonetheless. I pulled her up and put my hand on her waist as an experiment. Luminous blushed slightly but didn't say anything, so I guess she was fine with it. Do you know anywhere good to eat in Ruberius or Night Garden? Luminous nodded. Exploring Night Garden will be far more enjoyable than Ruberius. I nodded. This was her territory, and I'm sure she knew it best. Alright then, I'll leave what we do up to you then since you probably know this area best. Foo-foo, I recall Hinata mentioning that it was the person who asked for the date who is supposed to plan things out. Hinata. Keep your mouth shut. That is how it traditionally goes, but I don't really know this area. We can go to my territory or Tempest if you want me to take the lead. Luminous rolled her eyes. I was simply teasing you. I could feel a blush creep up on my face. Ah. Well. Can you just teleport us? I sighed. Luminous giggled lightly before we were engulfed in a wave of light. Chapter 124, Hanging Out. I looked to the side in embarrassment. Ah. Well. Can you just teleport us? I sighed. Luminous giggled lightly. Cute. Before I could respond, we were engulfed in a wave of light. I felt that I could interfere with Luminous's spatial motion and sort of hijack it and take us to a different set of coordinates. Interesting. Usually, I'm the one who teleports everyone around, so I haven't been in the kind of situation where I can experiment with that. I'll have to leave it for another time. I'll just enjoy being a passenger princess for now. I looked around the area that Luminous had teleported us to. Night Garden was located directly under the capital of the Holy Empire Ruberius, so it was an underground city. Through various magics that have been employed, you can't even tell that you are underground. If I looked up, I could see the sun and clouds. Luminous's subjects were basically living the good life thanks to her efforts. If I remember things correctly, thanks to Veldora and the previous Great Denma War, the vampire numbers had dwindled a lot, so Luminous had to do something to further prevent the decline of the vampires. She created a way for humans to live in relative peace and harmony. Even with their freedom being restricted, they lived a decent life. They didn't have to worry about dying to a random monster attack, or dying of starvation. They had everything they ever needed, except for freedom. She used the willingly given blood of her human subjects to feed her vampire subjects without any kind of death, basically allowing the vampires to live in relative peace. As an added bonus, since the humans, in their perception, were living happily and willingly giving their blood to the goddess Luminous, the blood tasted better than normal. I looked around where exactly Luminous had teleported us. We seemed to be in some kind of fancy restaurant now. Though we did not appear in the waiting area, we seemed to have directly appeared in a hidden booth. Luminous separated from me and took a seat on one of the couches. I sat opposite to her. This is the restaurant that I most regularly go to when I wish to dine out. They know to keep my identity hidden and always serve quality meals. I did not wish to wait with the common vampires for a seat, said Luminous. I nodded. I imagined that if she appeared in the normal waiting area, there is a chance some people may recognize her, causing word to get out about the location of one of the true ancestors, which could be annoying. Though I doubt any would overextend, power was worshipped in this world, so no one would bother Luminous if they thought there might be consequences for such an action. I imagine if Roy was still known as the ruler of vampires, then Luminous would have to put even more effort into remaining hidden. After all, if she appeared in public, word would soon get out about her. Vampires were a long-lived race, and there were bound to be many who would recognize her. Before I could think further, I was interrupted by the curtain to the booth opening, and in came a well-dressed older gentleman. He bowed towards Luminous and then to me. My lady, I was not expecting you today. Luminous nodded. Indeed, a friend of mine wished to dine out today, and so I brought him here. It is an honor that you would think so highly of us, Lady Luminous. Luminous waved the man off. Think nothing of it, Athen. The vampire I now knew was named Athen nodded. Now, what would you like today, Lady Luminous? Get me some blood wine and fire dragon steak, said Luminous. Dragon steak was seriously the regular wagyu steak of this world, very fatty and tender, and only the rich could afford it. Athen nodded and then turned to me. What did you wish for, my lord? Give me what she got, but instead of blood wine I'd like red wine. Athen nodded. Very well, it will be ready shortly. And with that, Athen left. He was pretty strong. What's he doing working as a waiter? He had all the basic skills of a vampire: blood raise, charm, coercion, paralyze, self-regeneration, shadow motion, steal strength, transform, and then he had some less common skills as well. He had no unique skills, but he was still quite strong, easily at the special A rank. Vampires would really be the ultimate race if they did not have their weakness to sunlight and need for blood. The sheer amount of intrinsic skills they had was absurd, and each of them was useful too, not to mention their immortality and power. Luminous smiled smugly. He is one of Louis's direct subordinates, one of the 7 great nobles. 7 great nobles? Luminous nodded. The 7 great nobles are a group of vampires that have evolved past the standard vampire and are capable of ignoring the sun and no longer require blood to function. Each of them are direct descendants of Louis and Roy. I see, so Athen is one of these 7 great nobles. Indeed, he wished to work as a waiter and Louis saw no reason to reject his desire, and so here he is. I guess every being of sufficient age has a bit of a weird character. Wanting to work as a waiter isn't the oddest characteristic I know of. He must be quite the interesting character. Luminous nodded. Indeed, I have known him for quite a long time now. He is far more likable than Prelix. Prelix? Ah, I think Ramarice mentioned him once. He was also a creation of Twilight's, right? While Ramarice knew a lot about the world, I had came to find out that a lot of her memories were pretty hazy due to not being in full maturity yet. So, while she did remember a significant amount, she had also forgotten plenty, so there are things she is not aware of. Luminous nodded to my question. Indeed, he was one of the pupils of the ancestors, and one of the few who did not take my murder of Twilight well. Oh? How come? He seemed to want Twilight's approval and was always jealous of me for being the so-called perfect creation. I nodded in understanding. So he had daddy issues then. Luminous laughed lightly. Indeed, that is one way to say it. I imagine he would be infuriated if he heard you say that though. Before I could respond, the curtains opened, revealing Athen holding a silver platter. Here is your blood wine, Lady Luminous, and here is your red wine, my lord, said Athen as he placed the drinks in front of us. Thank you, Athen, said Luminous. It was my pleasure, my lady. The food will be ready soon. Please excuse me. I took a sip of the red wine. This is quite good. I do prefer Ozroth's own wine, but this is a close second. Luminous nodded as she took a sip of her own blood wine. I wonder how blood wine is made? Answer. It is a fairly simple process. Blood is simply added in during the fermentation. The stronger the being the blood comes from, the better it tastes to vampires. I see. Thanks, Odin. Back to Prelix, what species is descended from him? A variant of vampires is descended from him, the Night Stalkers. They are more powerful than regular vampires in general, however, they suffer from severe side effects from being exposed to sunlight as well as extreme withdrawal if they do not indulge in blood for some time. Informed Luminous. I see. He and 2 others used to reside with me before leaving due to wanting to experiment further with humans. Said Luminous. Oh? I didn't know that. Luminous nodded. Indeed, alongside Brelix, one of the true ancestors of the current humanity stayed with me, Pippin, and then the true ancestor of Onychand, Ashley, also stayed with me. Huh? I had no idea that so many true ancestors still lived, or did they die after they left your care? Luminous shook her head. Last I checked they had taken over some small kingdom by the coast and had founded a magic tower meant to further advance magic. Though I'm sure they have many dubious dealings going on in the background. None of them care much for humanity, and Prelix thought them to be bugs to be stomped on. Huh, sounds interesting. Maybe I'll visit sometime. Feel free, though I will warn you that they will likely try to capture and experiment on you. Warned Luminous. Well, they can try. I'm sure their attempts will be amusing. It didn't take long for Athen to arrive with both of our fire dragon steaks. He set both of our plates in front of us. I do hope the 2 of you enjoy. And with that, he laughed. Very professional, would rate as a 9/10. I'd give him a 10/10, but that is reserved only for Raiden. I took a bite of the steak, which practically melted in my mouth. It wasn't necessarily spicy, but it did warm my mouth the more I chewed it. It was surprisingly pleasant. It has a bit of a kick to it. I guess it gets that from the fire dragon. Luminous took a bite of her own and nodded. Indeed, it is part of why I prefer the meat of fire dragons to any other dragons. I took a sip of my wine as Luminous asked, now, why don't you explain to me what this Naruto that you called Rimuru is? Ah, right, I did tell you I'd tell you about Naruto, didn't I? Well, I'll give you a summary, then I can give you the manga to read on your own time. Manga? Manga is a method of telling a story. It primarily uses drawings and chat bubbles to get the story moving forward. It comes in all kinds of genres and has varying art styles as well. If you want, I can leave a couple of different series for you to go through. Luminous nodded. I would like that. Perhaps, in the future, we could try reading a few of them together. Ah, she would probably get bored if she read it all by herself. I sure as hell remember it being way more fun to talk about the different stories I read than just mindlessly reading them and moving on. I have a feeling if I told Luminous that Veldora loves manga, she would purposefully not read it. She was extremely petty when it came to Veldora. Alright, I'll leave some manga for you then, but only if you promise to train your new ultimate skill. Luminous pouted but relented. I shouldn't even have to get you to do that. A skill is only useful when it is truly mastered. Luminous glared at me. TSK. Just because I consider you a friend does not give you the authority to nag me. I have agreed, and I am not one to break my promises. Plus, I would have gotten around to training the skill eventually. Ah, Lumina still has her pride. That's good. She's been acting pretty weird today, maybe I'm just being delusional. I nodded. I see. I'll leave it to you then. The stronger you are, the stronger our alliance becomes. We made small talk while we ate, it didn't take long for us to finish. Luminous chugged the rest of her blood wine before looking at me. Now, do you still have time to accompany me? I nodded. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to do. I never told anyone when I'd be back, so I should be fine. Luminous nodded with a satisfied smile. She offered me her elbow, which I gracefully took, and then we vanished. After a long day, Luminous and I appeared back in the lounge of her inner sanctum. Well, that was fun. I voiced out. Luminous nodded beside me. Indeed, I did not think you would make for pleasant company, Felix. Hey. I make for the best company. Luminous smirked. I do not wish to crush you, so I shall not argue about the truthfulness of that statement. I'll take that as a win. Of course you would. Sighed Luminous. Before Luminous and I could continue our conversation, we were interrupted. My lady. We both turned to the voice. It was a short white-haired male. I don't recognize him, but he must be somewhat important if he was allowed access to the inner sanctum. Sir. Luminous greeted with a hint of annoyance. Ah, sir, I think that is the name of one of the 10 great saints. Sir kneeled. My lady, I apologize for arriving unannounced. Luminous sighed. I am most displeased, however, I will excuse your actions for now. Thank you, my lady. This guy is an incomplete saint just like Hinata, and he also has a unique skill. Most impressive. Unique skill, all-rounder has been analyzed. Unique skill, all-rounder has been absorbed into Odin, Lord of Cursed Knowledge. This is actually an incredibly powerful unique skill. It allows the user to copy all the arts of an opponent once the opponent has been analyzed. Of course, the user of this skill still needs to master the arts, they just copy the knowledge, but that alone is still incredibly powerful. Arts have no true limit as to how powerful they can get. Melt Slash is an art, Dimension Fault is an art, and even Time Stop is an art, though I doubt that is nearly as easy to copy. Still, if this Sir is smart, he will go far. I thought only Hinata knew about your true identity, Luminous. I responded. Luminous nodded. That was how it was previously. However, I have disclosed my identity to a few people Hinata approved of. The times are changing, so it is best that things change around the Western Holy Church as well. I nodded. Well, I'm surprised that I haven't heard of an uprising. Luminous rolled her eyes. As if I would be so careless. No, those who were informed were intelligent enough to understand the significance of what I have done for humanity. I see. Well, I'll leave you to your business. It was a fun date, Luminous. Luminous' face twitched for a moment, but before she could respond I teleported back to Tempest. Cagley, it had been far too long since Laplace had checked in. It should not have taken him too long to get out of the Great Jura Forest and arrive at one of their secret bases. But for some reason, Laplace's message had yet to come, something that worried Cagley greatly, a worry that only turned into resignation and despair after she felt the artifact that notified her of Yoki's status break into pieces. It was fairly common for such artifacts to be used by various nobles and royals. It was an easy way of finding out if one of their kin had suddenly passed away, and it was not difficult at all for Yoki to get his hands on one for each of their members. Yoki's artifact breaking could only mean two things. It may have malfunctioned, which was not impossible. Such a thing has happened previously. But the far more likely one was that Yoki was dead. Cagley had no idea how such a thing could happen so suddenly. As far as she knew, Yoki would be going to attend the Tempest Founding Festival as a friend of Rimuru, while Laplace would be taking out Hinata Sakaguchi. They had everything planned out. The anti-magic area covering Tempest was disabled thanks to Maria Bell's influence, then the planned Chaos Dragon attack which was bound to cause enough chaos for Laplace to be able to take advantage of. Laplace had all the resources he needed to successfully take out Hinata Sakaguchi, and yet he had not contacted her about the success or failure of his mission. The artifact connecting to Laplace had not shattered, meaning that he was alive. There were two possible reasons why he had not contacted her yet. One was that he was in a precarious situation and could not afford to make contact, or two, was that he was captured by the enemy. Cagley was leaning towards the latter, which would explain the attack on Yoki in that case. Cagley did not doubt Laplace's loyalty, so she would assume that they had some method to access the information he possessed, and Laplace knew everything. It would make sense for Demon Lord Rimuru, or Demon Lord Felix, to come after Yoki. He was involved in the Famuth invasion and partially involved in this attack on the Founding Festival. Cagley could feel her fists clenching. She had lost almost everybody dear to her thanks to that blasted demon and slime. She needed revenge. This hatred inside of her was greater than even the hatred she held for Demon Lord Leon. No, she would do anything to see Demon Lord Rimuru dead, and she would do far more to see Demon Lord Felix dead. She still had access to her vast resources, and she could not control the three heads of Cerberus the same way Yoki could, but they were each loyal to Yoki in their own way. Damrata had even sworn loyalty to Yoki, so she knew she could rely on him and his vast connections for her plan. He would want revenge for Yoki. Misha and her tamed magic beasts would have their own resources, and she was grateful to Yoki for taking her out of the slums in the Eastern Empire. The only one she was not completely certain about was Vega, but Vega was a man who reveled in trampling on the weak and growing stronger. She would find a way to tempt him to her side. Dear she knew would remain by her side no matter what. Even in her new life, her former maid was always with her. That thought brought back fond memories, back when she was a little girl, back before her father. She shook her head. She shouldn't be dwelling on the past now. President. She turned to where the voice was coming from and was met with Tyr, who was standing in the doorway to her room. Her head was low, and she clearly looked like she had lost her spirit. The usual playfulness in her voice was gone. Cagley nodded. Tyr. She had already informed Tyr about the fate of Yoki and the likely fate of Laplace, and Tyr did not take it well. First, they lost Footman, then Clayman, and now possibly Laplace. It was far too much loss in such a short period of time. They had promised not to lose anyone else. But that promise had been broken, again. Their family was being torn apart by the Demon Lords. But she knew that while she could blame Demon Lord Felix for their deaths, he was not in the wrong. This was a world where strength mattered most. Those with power could do whatever they wished. There is a reason Guy Crimson ruled an entire continent uncontested because humans were too afraid to make a move on him. The true dragons are feared and allowed to do whatever they wish due to their strength. Even Veldor's rampages were only stopped by the other true dragons or the occasional hero. When it comes to the deaths of her loved ones, Cagley knew that Demon Lord Felix was not exactly in the wrong. They made the first move all 3 times. They were the ones who originally released Charybdis to attack Tempest, they were the ones who gave Clayman permission to continue with his plan, and it was under Yuki's direct order that Laplace ambushed Hinata Sakaguchi. The deaths of Footman and Clayman were justified, same with the likely capture of Laplace. That didn't mean Cagley couldn't be angry about it, though. No, she was infuriated, and then Yuki died. Without Yuki, what was the point of their dream? He was the one who was meant to lead them to their paradise. Cagley sighed. She could think about all of that after she got her revenge. In the end, no matter what, both demon lords will likely get in her way, if only due to her participation in 3 of the attacks on Tempest. What did you need, Tyr? She asked softly. It had only been some hours since Yuki's death. Perhaps they could release their version of the story, and spread rumors that the 2 demon lords were behind the death of Yuki. While Cagley doubted it would cause a significant amount of harm, if the rumor gets traction it will damage Demon Lord Rimuru popularity, something that may halt Tempest's rapid expansion. She always had trouble planning around the 2 demon lords. Her skill always acted oddly when it came to them. Cagley did not think Demon Lord Felix cared much for his reputation. If anything, he seemed to just be assisting Demon Lord Rimuru with his goals while doing whatever else he wished. The life of a demon lord was one filled with extravagance and hedonism, with all the demon lords being free to pursue whatever desires they wished for. While an alliance of demon lords like the one between Demon Lord Felix and Demon Lord Rimuru was unheard of, both demon lords were free to pursue such an alliance. The status of a demon lord made one practically untouchable in the Western nations. President. Tyr muttered again. She shook her head, she was getting lost in her thoughts again. Sorry Tyr, go ahead. Tyr nodded, hesitating for a moment before pushing the words out. The Western Holy Church has made an announcement. On the way back, one of the squadrons came across an attack. Cagley suddenly got a bad feeling. They said they were too late to prevent the attack but were able to identify who exactly was killed in the attack. The Princess of the Kingdom of Siltrasso, Mariabel Rosso, and the Guild Master of the Free Guild, Yuki Kagorazaka. They had said they found evidence of the attack being due to a mercenary group called the... Tyr stopped for a moment, clenching her fists in a mixture of anger and sadness. She struggled for a few moments, and after lifting her mask to wipe her eyes, she finally spoke up. A mercenary group called the Moderate Harlequin Alliance, a group that had attacked the Holy Empire Ruberius in the past. Cagley paled. That should not be possible. According to a theory Yuki had, he believed that the demon Lord Valentine was the god Luminous. After all, Laplace had said he had killed Bloody Lord Roy Valentine, someone who could rival her at the peak of her power. And yet there was now another demon Lord Valentine on the Demon Lord's Council. Yuki believed that Demon Lord to be the true Demon Lord as well as the goddess Luminous of the Western Holy Church. The only reason the Western Holy Church would make such a false statement was if they were ordered from up top, or it was indeed just a coincidence, which was highly unlikely. The Emperor of the Holy Empire, Louis, may have been responsible, but Cagley felt the order could have come from even higher up on the hierarchy, from the goddess of the Western Holy Church herself, Luminous. The only reason that Demon Lord would make such an announcement was if she was in league with whoever killed Yuki, and as she had now found out, Mariabel as well. Seeing as it was likely that Demon Lord Felix or Demon Lord Rimuru were responsible, then that means that there is likely an alliance between 3 demon lords, 2 of which hold a massive amount of political power. This was not good. The death of Yuki Kagorazaka would shake the world. He may not have publicly shown it, but he held a vast amount of influence over the world. With his death, there would be no Guild Master of the Free Guild, and while Yuki had built the Free Guild up to survive his absence, Cagley did not think anything like this would happen. She could not afford to take the helm of Guild Master no matter how much she wished to. Such a position would put her in the public's eyes too much, not to mention Demon Lord Felix and Demon Lord Rimuru may know of her true identity and come after her. Cagley could not take the risk. Do they know our identities? Tyr nodded slowly, clearly exhausted. They announced that a few of us had already died, but they revealed our existence. Currently, the world knows who we are and what we look like due to an artist rendering. Cagley banged her fist on the table. Damn it. There is more, though this might be good news. Tyr added, forcing herself to smile behind her mask after seeing how angry Cagley was. What? She shout out. Tyr didn't call her out on her sudden aggression, something that made her take a deep breath. Tyr did not deserve this aggression. I'm sorry, Tyr. Cagley whispered, taking another deep breath. What is it? Ruberius had also announced that the leader of the Holy Knight Order, Hinata Sakaguchi, has taken a leave of absence. Announced Tyr, trying to lift Cagley's mood. Finally, Some good news. Cagley exclaimed. That likely means that Laplace's attack was at least partially successful. Whether she is truly dead or simply injured remains to be seen. Tyr nodded along, finally regaining some of her usual energy. Laplace is the strongest. I can't imagine him failing at anything. Tyr shook her head and focused back on the matter at hand. What do we do now, President? The entire Western nations is out for us now. Cagley took a deep breath. She began using her unique skill, planner to the fullest. It allowed her to come up with a plan based on the information she possessed that would always be profitable. Of course, it hasn't been very helpful in her most recent plans, but she had no other choice but to rely on it at this point. She was far too used to Planner's plans being successful that when the skill's plans failed, she was panicking. Something she would have to correct in the future. If her skill was proving to be unreliable, then she would have to find a way to make up for that flaw. She considered how she could go about getting her revenge and freeing Laplace when her mind went back to something Tyr had said. You said that the death of Mariabel Rosso was confirmed? Tyr nodded. Part of Cagley wanted to rejoice at that. Mariabel had always been a thorn in the side and always thought so highly of herself, but Cagley was focused on something else now, her revenge and freeing Laplace. Before she went further, she looked at Tyr. Tyr, I want to get revenge for the deaths of Clayman, Footman, and Ecchi. I want to free Laplace. Will you help me? Tyr nodded, temporarily regaining her determination. Of course, President. You don't even need to ask. Cagley found a smile growing on her face. Thank you, Tyr. Now you said that the death of Mariabel Rosso was confirmed? Tyr nodded. Yup. Cagley nodded. Mariabel Rosso, to the public's eye, was just some princess from some small kingdom in the Western nations, so her death wouldn't cause too many ripples. But she could use that. From what she knew, thanks to Ecchi, Granville Rosso was seemingly attached to his granddaughter. Perhaps they could collaborate if he also wished to get revenge. He likely didn't have as much information about the circumstances as she did, so she could use that information to get Granville to the table. Granville had vast resources available to him. Even the Guardian of the West was likely his subordinate. Publicly, it was well known that the Count of the Citter Border had a very powerful subordinate, one that was single-handedly keeping the demons of the Ice Continent out of the Western nations. The Citter Border was located just north of the Kingdom of Ingrassia. It is the border directly facing the Ice Continent. The Count was responsible for keeping the Western nations protected from the demons of Guy Crimson, and there was a Guardian who had been assisting with this duty for generations. The Guardian wore a mask and armor that covered him from head to toe. No one knew about his true identity, but Ecchi was able to find out so much thanks to Damrata and his contacts. Thanks to all the information he acquired, Ecchi was able to deduce that the Guardian of the West likely only answered Granville Rosso. This Guardian was extremely powerful as well. Even Damrata admitted that he was a powerful foe, and Damrata had only recognized Hinata Sakaguchi, Rimuru Tempest, and Felix White as threats in the Western nations in the past. The Guardian was apparently named Razal by Granville himself. The armor he wore was his true body. Cagley was incredibly surprised that one such as Granville would ally with non-humans, but she supposed that even he had to accept Razal due to the sheer power he offered. However, since no one knew when the demons would attack, the Guardian of the West was seemingly always protecting the borders in case of a demon attack, so they may not be able to count on a Guardian much. Still, perhaps Granville could pull some strings. With his help, they may just be able to deal with Demon Lord Felix and Demon Lord Rimuru, and if not that, then at least free Laplace. Cagley did not care what Granville did after that. She smiled as she finally had the foundation of a plan. Now all she needed to do was get in contact with Granville, which was fairly easy as Damrata seemed to have some kind of personal relationship with Granville. With Ecchi gone, Damrata was proving his weight in gold. So he's dead then? Asked Rimuru. I nodded with a cheerful grin on my face. Yup, soul and all. Rimuru sighed but nodded. At least that's one threat taken care of. I could tell he was conflicted on how to feel about Ecchi's death, but I didn't say anything. That was for him to sort through on his own. Yeah, anyways, I'm off. I looked at all the papers on Rimuru's desk. Have fun with all that. Ugh, alright, see you later. Bye. Now that everything that I wanted to do was taken care of and the festival is over, I should be heading back to my territory soon. After everything has calmed down a bit, I think I'll go and visit another world, perhaps after Chloe and Hinata are unsealed and all taken care of. And I already knew just what world to visit. You still can't find the world of DXD Odin? Negative. The coordinates that were deciphered from Ingvild's soul lead to a section of the multiverse that does not yet exist. So you're saying DXD just doesn't exist then? That is the most probable outcome. But how? Ingvild is clearly here, and with my information, I know the world she comes from. How is it possible that her world just doesn't exist? The most highly likely reason is due to the individual Ingvild was summoned from the future. At this moment, the universe of DXD does not exist, however, that may change in the future. Summoned from the future? Correct. That's just crazy. The fact that the otherworlder summoning ritual can pull from different points in time. So the universe of DXD hasn't been born yet, huh? I'd need to time travel if I want to get Ingvild back to her home. I've traveled to other universes, time travels differently in each of those universes, but in the end they are all still linked to this multiverse, so it isn't quite time travel, more like time dilation. Traveling straight up to the future, though? That's something completely new. I have no idea just how safe that is and if the voice of the world will even allow something like that. The coordinates Odin was able to pull from Ingvild's soul clearly aren't enough to lock onto a universe that is born in the future. There are only a few options. 1. I have to wait until the universe of DXD is born, which is likely an uncountable number of years away, or 2. I can learn how to time travel. Could you get to work analyzing the feasibility of traveling to the future? Affirmative. It has already begun. Great, thanks. I'll come up with a plan after I have more information. Well, that ruins the plan of going to DXD at this point entirely. Now, how am I going to break this up with Ingvild? I know she has been looking forward to going back to her home world. Though there may be a positive side to this, since we have time to prepare, we can save Ingvild's mother from the fate she suffered in canon, so everything isn't hopeless. Well, I'll have to come up with a good way to explain things to Ingvild soon. It's best not to delay with these kinds of things. Ingvild has put her trust in me. I owe it to her to at least properly explain everything. I'm not a total dickhead. Guy Crimson, he sighed as he looked down at Dino, who was lying on the floor as if the chilling temperatures meant nothing to him. He hadn't even bothered to bring a pillow and was just resting his head on the cold floor without a care in the world. At least despite his laziness, Dino's strength hasn't decreased. In fact, it only seemed to have increased for some odd reason. Perhaps some sort of skill? Guy had long since suspected Dino of being the bearer of one of the Sin series skills, specifically the unique skill, Sloth. After all, Guy did not know anyone else who would qualify for such a skill other than Dino. The fallen angel was practically always sleeping. Perhaps an aspect of Sloth was that it made the user stronger the more slothful they were. It wouldn't be the first time Guy had seen a skill like that. Milim's skill came to mind. So you're saying Dagrul kicked you out, and now you have nowhere to stay? Dino desperately nodded. Yes. So can I stay with you? Pretty please? He really didn't want to deal with Dino long term. That sounded like a pain. In fact, he would likely end up killing Dino out of sheer annoyance. Perhaps he can have his new friend Felix deal with Dino? Though he did hear about the recent attack on Tempest, the humans must be forgetting the majesty of a demon lord if they thought such an attack would be successful. Rain had said it was a large group of otherworlders that were quickly taken care of, something Guy did not doubt. Mere otherworlders are incapable of standing up to the might of a single primordial unless they were truly extraordinary. Not to mention there was not just a single primordial present, but 4 that were present in Tempest at that moment. The thing that he was interested in was the apparent release of the Chaos Dragon. He hadn't felt a thing, but that was due to him not focusing his senses in on Jura. He wasn't one to micromanage the 9 sovereigns, after all. Rain did not have much information. She said Felix was being tight-lipped, but Guy just thought she had forgotten to ask about the Chaos Dragon and was pushing the blame away. It wouldn't be the first time. But apparently, the Chaos Dragon was dealt with. Seeing as Milim was present, Guy wondered how that went. Had she decided after all this time to put the beast down? Or did she seal it with Felix's help? He'll have to ask next time they see each other. Tempest, huh? Perhaps he can throw Dino to Rimuru. He has been hearing a lot of interesting things about Tempest. Rain had explained a bit about the dungeon, and he was quite interested. It was a good way to make use of Small World. It was reliant on Veldora's magicules, of course, but if Ramaris was in her true form, then Guy had no doubt that she could maintain a 100-floor dungeon single-handedly. Ramaris, in her prime, was just that powerful. Even the true dragons would have to be wary of her. Tempest was really making a huge mess of things. Sending Dino to spy on Tempest will be useful. He wouldn't expect much from Dino. This was primarily to get Dino out of his hair, after all. How about you go to the Monster Nation Tempest and give me some information about how everything is going over there? Dino groaned. But that sounds like a lot of work. Guy appeared above Dino and looked down at him. Unfortunately, I'm not giving you a choice, Dino. Dino began kicking his feet up like a child. Seriously? Couldn't you send Rain or something to do that? Of course not. You know how she is. Then send Misery, Dino began before feeling Guy pressure him. Sighing out, he brought an arm to cover his eyes from the light. Fine, fine, it's not like I have a choice in the first place. Guy smiled happily at Dino. Great. See, this is why I like you, Dino. You like me enough not to make me do this? Dino asked hopefully. No. Ugh, fine, fine. First, Drumroll kicks me out, and then you make me work. This is not my decade. I swear, what happened to hospitality? A couple thousand years ago, you let me stay here for a few years. I liked that guy more. Remember the good old days? I would sleep in the corner and you would do your thing, whatever that was. Guy rolled his eyes at Dino's whining. He wondered just how Dino ended up developing the ego he had now. Did Veldanova order him to lie on the floor often when he had no ego? And his current personality is just a side effect of that? He wouldn't put it past Velda. Get up and leave, and take this. He created a letter in his hand imbued with his aura, which should be enough for Rimuru to take in Dino. It is under the request of Guy Crimson, after all. No other explanation was needed. Dino sagged his shoulders but accepted the letter, giving Guy one final begging look. Yet after getting nothing but a glare he finally left. Guy looked to his side where Rain was standing. You said Felix had another unknown demon duke under him? Rain nodded. Yes, she wasn't nearly as strong as us, but she was powerful. Guy nodded. How interesting. According to Rain, Felix had a few direct subordinates who were a cut above the rest, subordinates who were easily capable of dispatching saints. There was Arcuaid, Megaman, and Lalatina, who he already knew of, each extremely powerful now that they were named and incarnated. Not to mention their lieutenants, Arcuaid had the sole Archduke of the demon realm under her, a demon undefeated by all who had challenged him. That demon was unmatched in the demon realm as long as no primordial fought him. He may have even evolved into a demon duke if he was named and incarnated. There is a reason why subordinating a primordial will mess up the balance so much. Each primordial had such a vast force under them, that, if used to its fullest extent, could burn the world to ashes. Before Felix's existence, there were only 3 beings who had ever reached the rank of Demon Duke in the cardinal world, Rain, Misery, and him, and only one who had reached the rank of Devil Lord, him. Now, there was another Devil Lord, and many new Demon Dukes. The world was changing quickly. Truly, a single being is capable of turning the world upside down. It reminded him of when he and Udra began their game in earnest. The world had gone through many changes back then. Demons weren't the only formidable forces under Felix either. Rain informed him of the Ana serving under Felix, one who had energy reserves surpassing even saints. Something quite impressive for a degraded race like the Ana. From what Rain saw, it seems that rather than restoring her lost ancestral power, this Ana under Felix was evolving in a never-before-seen direction that had even Rain confused. According to Rain, this Ana was named Suko and had impressive battle instincts. Should she grow, she would be a formidable foe, which was high praise coming from Rain. Rain may be useless herself, but she was a primordial. She did not give recognition lightly, not to mention Rain had said that this Ana had certain outcome, a skill that could even reach the ultimate levels if properly trained. Then there was Felix's maid, who was named Raiden according to Rain. She was a dragon lord, and according to Rain, Raiden was approaching the level of reserves that Rain herself had. For a dragon lord to be capable of approaching the reserves of a demon duke primordial was quite astonishing. She may just be the strongest dragon descended from the original elemental dragon to exist in the current era, though the dragon lord that Sylvia's dynasty had was also formidable. The dragon and the Ana hadn't even acquired divinity yet. She still had room to grow, just like Rain and Misery. Though he was doubtful that they would reach that level, even Rain and Misery had not become devil lords after thousands of years incarnated in the cardinal world. Guy had tried to get around the restriction they had, but it seemed they were incapable of undergoing the harvest festival. They should be capable of reaching the status of devil lord on their own, however, they would need to train for that as well as enter conflict often, something both Rain and Misery did not do, so Guy believed it would be a long time before those two acquired divinity, if they ever did. Then, apparently, there was another new demon under Felix's employ named Sukina. Rain did not get to see his abilities, but she had said she disliked him acting similar to Diablo. According to Rain, he was also as powerful as a demon duke, although he was not quite at Rain's level, but he was still powerful. Though he seemed to be some variant demon similar to Beretta, if Beretta could even be considered a demon anymore after the changes it went through. That's 2 demon duke subordinates under Felix who aren't primordials. Guy found himself wondering just how Felix managed to get the demons under him to that level. If it were so easy, then the incarnated archdemons under him would have reached that level long ago. Perhaps he will have to ask him the next time they meet. Then there was Clayman's former fox, who now serves under Felix. The fox also grew astronomically stronger when compared to how she was under Clayman. It was quite interesting that everyone under Felix had grown in strength so drastically. Naming, of course, had a part to play, but that alone was not enough. His subordinates must be training an incredible amount. If naming and incarnating was enough, Misery and Rain would both be far stronger than they are now, rather than merely being around the same level as the primordials under Felix. Their Deathman host bodies are made up of the corpses of 1,000,000 humans each. He glared at Rain and Misery. These two could serve to learn something from Felix's subordinates. While he didn't doubt that their physical bodies were more powerful than the ones the demoness trio incarnated in, demons were never physical fighters, and the magicule bonus that they gained from their host bodies could be made up for with training, which the primordials under Felix were clearly doing, unlike his own. "Did you need something, Lord Guy?" asked the clueless Misery. He sighed. No. Misery turned to Rain. "He must be mad at you again," she whispered. "Huh? Why would he be mad at me?" Guy sighed and ignored those two hopeless idiots. Then there was Carrion, who had submitted to Felix. Carrion still had the potential to awaken into a true demon lord as well. Those were just Felix's subordinates, and the slime also seemed to have a rather significant force under him. Truly, it seemed like the game between him and Ryudra would be ending soon. Why else would it seem like everything was coming to a climax? Hopefully, Felix will visit soon. He was getting quite bored. If he takes too long, he might just visit Felix himself. It has been a long time since someone so entertaining has shown up. Chapter 125, Mansion Relocation. I sighed as I relaxed back on my throne. It's been a few days since we returned from Tempest. The founding festival is officially over, and it ended up consuming a lot more of my mental energy than I thought it would. At least I got to have a bit of fun in the end. "Master." I looked to where the voice had come from and was met with my beautiful maid standing at attention. "Yes, Raiden?" "I have completed the training of 100 more maids," said Raiden. "Huh, really? Well, that was faster than I thought. Take me to them then, I'll name them." Raiden nodded. The naming process was pretty simple. It seems Raiden had already briefed them ahead of time. I watched as Raiden walked back and forth in front of the 100 recently named Dark Elves. "You will be expected to serve your master with complete dedication, no slacking will be accepted, and treachery will be rewarded with death." The maids all nodded seriously. "Yes." Raiden nodded with a satisfied smile. "There will be a group training session in 1 hour. You must learn to control your newly gained power quickly. You may rest until then, leave." With Raiden's dismissal, all the maids left. She seriously looked like a drill instructor. She was very intense. "Raiden?" I called out. "Yes, Master. Can you tell Sasha to get ready? I'm going to move her mansion here today." Raiden nodded. "It will be done." And with that,